It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Jerry Pornell joins us with Larry Magid and Rob Reed, and we're going to talk about all sorts of things. The big announcements coming up this week. The Galaxy Watch, I got it right here, the Gear. The Note 3, the iPhone 5S. It's a Twitapalooza next on Twit.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 427, recorded October 13th, 2013. The Intern did it. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Stamps.com. Use Stamps.com to buy and print real U.S. postage the instant you need it, right from your desk. To get a special offer, go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone, and enter TWIT. Stamps.com, use our offer code TWIT. And by GoToMeeting with HD Faces from Citrix, the powerfully simple way to meet and collaborate with coworkers and clients anywhere. You can share the same screen and see each other face-to-face with HD video conferencing. Even present from an iPad. Sign up for your 30-day free trial today. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click the Try It Free button, and use the promo code TWIT. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, or other Apple product is worth at Gazelle.com. And by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off, go to Squarespace.com and use the offer code TWIT10. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. I'm back, baby, and we've got a lot to talk about, but let me first introduce the panel as we discuss the week's tech news, starting from the, far right. It's Jerry Pornell. Jerry, our favorite science fiction author. We love having him on, jerrypornell.com. A regular contributor to Byte magazine for many years. The Chaos Manor column continues Chaos on website, jerrypornell.com. What is it? chaosmanor.com as well?
No, somebody got that a long time ago. It's just my name. You just use my name and you get to me. I was offered if I paid enough money to have chaosmanor.com, and I decided that wasn't
extortion.
Required.
It's easier just to your name. That's easy.
Just use me. If you can spell my name, you can find me. And I'm also with Gina's new domain thing, but I don't know how much of that's happening. John and I are involved in that.
Yeah, John, but what's fun about it, Dvorak writes for it, and he writes non-tech stuff. He writes about football and barbecue and stuff and hot dogs. And he just wrote a thing on Chicago hot dogs. So that's kind of a newdomain.net, I think, is the domain for that.
Yes.
On the far left, Larry Magid from CBS Radio. Hey, you know, it's Crossfire.
It's just where we're sitting.
That's where you're sitting. That's right. Great to have you also. ConnectSafely.org is the new website. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And a novelist, but also entrepreneur and good friend Rob Reed is in studio with us. Rob's recently written a really good novel. You know, you might like this. My daughter came home from the bookstore about 2 weeks ago. She said, I heard really good things about this science fiction novel, Year Zero. Fantastic. And I said, yeah, I know a little bit about that. The premise is that the aliens owe us a lot of money for copyrighted infringement.
Yeah, it's this tale of a vast alien civilization that is so into human pop music that they accidentally commit the biggest copyright infringement since the Big Bang, thereby bankrupting the entire universe. Hilarity ensues.
Rob knows a little bit about this. He created Listen.com and then subsequently Rhapsody.
Yep, Rhapsody was our product.
You've actually worked with the music companies in
Lucky
this
me.
capacity.
Lucky me, yep.
And I didn't know this, but I just learned this. You studied Arabic and international relations when you were at Stanford. That's why you lived in Cairo for
I did a
half.
Fulbright grant right after graduating and went to school on Tahrir Square.
How did you go from that to technology?
Well, I studied Arabic and modern Middle Eastern history in college, and then when I came home, I kind of went into business and became a consultant at Bain, and that became a feeder to business school. And when I was in business school, I'd been a generalist my whole life. I'd been like a liberal arts major, and
it's simple. You decided you need to make a living.
I decided I need to pick an industry, and I decided to come to the tech industry in '94.
A very good choice.
So I don't use my Arabic very often anymore.
No,
unless I'm sitting next to you and you're showing pictures from Turkey, and I can identify Muhammad and Allah.
It was very impressive
in the mosques. Yeah.
Very, very impressive, and also, of course, married to Morgan Webb, who now let me ask you, because G4, of course. Morgan, I worked with Morgan at Tech TV, and X-Play went on to continue as the greatest success, not only of Tech TV, but of G4 for a long time. G4 got rid of everybody, announced that they were going to become the Esquire channel, and most recently...
They announced that they're not.
Announced that, well, we're not going to do anything at all. But
it's bizarre.
Show reruns.
Yeah, I think Morgan's show, I mean, I'm just guessing here, it's probably on 18 times a week.
They continue to rerun
and
it.
They shot the last episode back in December. And it's topical. Like, what games come out this week?
No.
And so I don't know. Well, I guess what they decided to do is they were going to turn the Style Network into the Esquire Network. And as far as I know, G4 is reruns of Cops and Star Trek and stuff like that right now. With
So
no
it's-
original
It's
programming
just
at all.
sitting there, basically.
Just sitting there.
But what you don't do if you're in the cable business or the cable content business is give up real estate. I mean, that
I'd imagine not.
having a channel nowadays is really worth something.
Plugging
even if,
into 70 million homes or 50, whatever the number is. I mean,
if you
that's,
don't do
it's
anything.
very valuable, but it's just sitting there empty without any
and
unique content.
It's still
Yeah.
NBC Universal that owns
It's
it.
still NBC Comcast, yeah.
Via Comcast.
Yeah. NBC, Universal, Comcast, Vivendi, whatever the...
Whatever the hell is
Yeah.
their name of the week.
Yes.
All right. Well, it's nice to have all three of you. We're going to talk about the week's tech news. And a lot of what we'll talk about is what's coming up this week, because this is going to be, this week and next week, another big round of announcements. Windows 8.1 comes out next week on the 18th, along with the same day new versions of Microsoft's, I'm trying to think of a good word, benighted? I don't know. What's a good word? Jerry's the writer here. So are you. Actually, I'm surrounded by writers. Surface tablet.
Benighted's a wonderful word,
I think
Jerry.
benighted might be the right word. I don't know.
Well, it depends on whether you mean the Surface tablet as the standard one or the Pro version, which is too expensive, but which is pretty good.
It's at least a Windows computer.
Yeah.
Ironically, a lot of Windows experts agree, including Paul Thurrott, that Windows RT is really what Microsoft sees as the future of Windows, Windows on ARM.
Well, the Surface Pro is, I've had one, played with it for a while. I don't have one now, but I'm thinking of getting one. It is as close to what the original idea of a tablet was supposed to be as anything that's out there now. And it...
Yeah, but
and
the
of course-
original ideas for a tablet, which Bill Gates has, kind of embraced more than 10 years ago,
Oh, yeah.
were flops until Apple comes along and
Yeah.
says, no, this is what a
They were
tablet should
flops
be.
because the technology wasn't
Wasn't
there. Do you remember the compact T1000 or 100?
I have one. I have one.
I loved it. That was my favorite computer of all
It
time.
was running Windows XP.
It was. And the only problem was the processor just got too hot
Yeah.
when it ran too fast and
Well,
was
the
too
touch-
slow to begin with anyway.
The
The
touchscreens weren't.
technology wasn't there, but if they had just waited until just taken that machine and
I'm going to
put it
go
on
get mine.
modern-
I'm going to show you what it's...
Okay, I've got one around here too. I love it. It was my favorite computer of all time.
Well,
I have a
the
really
problem I
old
had-
iPhone in my briefcase.
Jerry, you were probably there too. I was at Comdex when Bill Gates announced the original tablet PC. And as I remember, it was very stylus dependent, I believe, at the time. The touchscreens were not very good. And it was kind of a kludge. Windows really, it really wasn't optimized. And there was really essentially no software that took
Well,
advantage of touch, or
it
hardly
was
any software.
Stylus dependent, I don't mind. The
Yeah.
problem was that
You know why? Because it was designed to work with Jerry's handwriting.
well, it was that. I agree.
Yours is the only handwriting it works
work
with,
with mine.
Jerry.
That's not the only. But it certainly was easier for me to do it than it was for you.
Yeah. So this is a convertible.
Love that. Yeah.
You see how it tilts around. And then you were talking about the stylus. It's hidden in here somewhere. I press this button and it pops out, I think. Well, no,
Yes.
where is it?
It's on
Lost
the
it.
side, up on
There
the...
it is.
Yeah.
There it is. And
What's the year of that, Leo?
Push
When
it
did that
in
come
and
out?
it comes out. And if you use that with OneNote, you've got the best research device you'll ever see.
I have to admit, one of the reasons I own this is because I sat next to some guy on a plane who was a salesman, I think. And he was showing me how great it was to do PowerPoint presentations for his clients and pull out the thing and annotate it and do it. And I thought, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And then I bought it. And
but the processor just wasn't very.
Well, that's the problem, right?
Enough.
And Jerry, you had an OS that wasn't designed
exactly
to do
now,
this.
Another generation, but even with the OS that wasn't exactly designed for it, if it had just gone to the next generation of chips, I think that would have been a very popular thing. It didn't have a camera built in, of course.
Oh, God, this was long before then. I mean, this has a PC card slot. It does have USB.
Yes.
It has Wi-Fi built in. So I guess, I don't know, what year was this, you think? 2004?
I want to say it feels like about 10 years ago. I remember.
Maybe a little earlier than that. I remember that I took one to a major Comdex. It was the only machine I took that year. And I managed to file my daily reports and get my column done, get everything done on it. The keyboard wasn't optimum, and I would have preferred an external keyboard connected to it. But it was good enough for that, even then with that software. Now, of course, it recognized my handwriting and maybe not other people.
Jerry's told the story before, but that's
Should I tell it again?
Go ahead.
Well, I was in Moscow, and
any story that begins "I was in Moscow" is okay by me.
Well, towards the end of the Soviet Union, and a good friend became a good friend was Panovich, who was the head of Paragraph, which was doing the handwriting recognition software for Microsoft. And he had a good friend who was Karpov, who was at that time the world chess champion.
Oh, yeah, Alexei Karpov, yeah.
We used to go to dinner and talk. Well, he's a good right-winger like me. So
and that means a different thing in Russia.
Yes, it did. Well, I'm more libertarian than crazy conservative anyway, but that's something else again. But we're sitting in his office. He said, my biggest problem is I don't have enough technical handwriting. And I said, oh, well, maybe I can fix that. And I got my logbook out, and I said, it looks like this. And the guy, and he said, yeah, that'd be wonderful. Can you? So I let him essentially copy all those pages.
Wow.
And that's the technical handwriting that was the standard for. So if it's going to recognize anybody, it's going to recognize mine.
How is your handwriting, Jerry? Are you like a?
It's god awful.
Okay, great.
It's really terrible. And I figured if he can read that, it'll read anything. And it did. And, of course, he sold it to Microsoft, and that engine has been in every edition of a Microsoft handwriting recognition program since 1990. So
I'm just baffled that I have to say OneNote is a great product, and I really have always liked it. But it's just, and I guess there are people who are crazy about it. But the tablet never really took off until Apple came along, and it was multi-touch, I think, made a difference. It did not have to have a stylus. I think that was a big selling point.
I think it was also the fact that we were all acclimated to the iPhone. It gave the iPad, obviously, a huge leg up. We were used to the OS. We were used to sort of the layout and so forth.
That's what Steve Jobs said in 2010. He said, you already know how to use it. And that was
that was a big deal. That was a big deal.
Rio, I don't have enough money to make the bet worthwhile, but I would bet that if somebody were to build a copy of that device you have right there on your desk, but use it with a modern multi-processor CPU, a modern Intel chipset.
Well, isn't that the Surface?
Well, the Surface is not that. That's the problem. It comes close, but they didn't do all the things that it did. That machine has it has a keyboard, as you notice. It's there. I don't have to carry a separate keyboard and Bluetooth with it. Yeah. I had, for instance, I forget when that machine was around, 2000 or so. Nevin and I were doing some major books, and I could sit on an airplane with that and those were the days when they scrunched you up so that if you tried to open a real laptop, it was in your lap and it was right up against your face and you could hardly see anything.
Those
But
days
with
haven't
that as a
changed, Jerry.
tablet, I could put a novel up and use the stylus and do editing with just standard
Now, Jerry, you can do this on a Lenovo, the Yoga. I have a Yoga 13.
It feels like a yoga. It's kind of interesting.
The difference is with a Yoga, and I can go bring that up later. The screen bends backwards. It doesn't come off, but it does give you, if you don't mind carrying the extra weight of the keyboard with you all the time, it gives you the same benefit. And I like that. It's one of the few Windows 8 laptops I really enjoy using.
Well, we'll find out. It's the 18th. 8.1 comes out. I think in many ways 8.1 answers a lot of the problems people have had with Windows 8 to date. And the new Surface will come out, and presumably, faster Haswell will give it better battery life, that kind of thing. So we'll see if it's enough. Microsoft has 10. The difference between Microsoft and Apple is so fascinating because for so long Apple was a weak second to Microsoft. Microsoft's going to open 10 stores in the U.S. at midnight to sell the Surface 2.
Wow.
That's the best they can do,
How long are the lines going to be exposed?
I don't know, Jerry.
Up for days.
You probably have enough money to make that bet.
Oh, I may get one. I've got methods.
I got the RT. I think RT is really what's most interesting at this point from Microsoft. I believe that's what they think is their future. But I don't know yet. I just don't know yet. Do you think, there's been a lot of, Ballmer's stepping down. I don't know who's going to be the new CEO. There's even been apparently a call from the board over the last couple of weeks to get Bill Gates to step down as chairman of the board.
Step down?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which they can't do because he votes his stock and his partners.
He's kind of dominant.
So, yeah.
I heard you're talking to somebody
his
at
heart
Pepsi.
isn't in it, obviously.
They're going to get Scully out of retirement.
Get John Scully.
Get Scully out of retirement.
No, I don't
Alan
think
Mulally.
What's he doing? Get Scully.
What's Scully guy doing?
Mostly Scully's going around apologizing for firing Steve Jobs, actually.
The apologies over.
Bill is still interested in saving the world, and his wife is quite religious, and they...
Is that what's going on? I didn't. Melinda Gates is deeply religious.
Well, not deeply, but she's a practicing Catholic.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah, of course, she ran the foundation while Bill was still running Microsoft. And Bill always said, I'm not going to give away any money until I could do it right. I don't want to just kind of throw money away.
She's a very sharp lady. She was a product manager for Microsoft.
Right. And she's the one who showed me Bob. She came to my house.
She showed you Bob?
She showed me Bob. I remember.
Wow.
And I forgive her for that.
All right.
Actually, Bob was sort of interesting if you thought of it as a juvenile program.
Okay, as a kids program. Now you've
I got
redeemed
a lot of
yourself.
great columns out of it. Are you kidding? It was like a gift to those of us.
I was waiting for Jerry to go out on a limb and say Bob was good, but no, you redeemed yourself. It's just for kids. It would be good.
Yeah, as a kids program, it was very good. It had some of that flavor of the iPad where it says you already know how to use it.
Yeah.
That
wasn't the flavor I was tasting.
How about a shout out for Clippy while we're at it? I miss Clippy.
Surfing the internet, which was not in those days very common.
I see you would like to surf the internet. Can I make a list for you?
Yeah.
The problem is they use the dog to give you advice, and I love dogs, but they're not known for their intellect. And they're not the species I would go to for technical advice.
Well, that's not the only announcement this week. There's more to come. We're going to talk about that in a second. We've got a fun panel here. Jerry Pornell, Larry Maggot, and, of course, Rob Reed. Rob, by the way, I didn't know this. You just whispered in my ear that Year Zero is a 99-cent deal right now on Amazon.
Yeah, for the next several days. So Random House has, and I think it's awesome that they're experimenting with pricing because that's how you learn how to survive a digital transition. Random House is pricing the ebook at 99 cents for, I think, most of the coming week, maybe even all of it.
Well worth picking up. The hardcover was $22.50.
Yeah, grab it while you can.
Yeah.
Let me offer my observation. I make quite a lot of money out of electronic books of my backlist now. And we have found that between $3.99 and $5.99, it's practically price insensitive.
Interesting.
Yep.
So do you charge $5.99 for everything?
Experimented with it. We have taken books and put them up at lower prices and then at higher, and and shuffled it around and compared this stuff with with some statistical techniques, and it's really pretty well priced incentives in that range. Once it gets over about $6, people start thinking about whether they want it or not. But up to that, if they decide they want it, they just get it. It's easy, click, click, and there it is.
Well, 99 cents is definitely the impulse.
99 cents is free.
Right.
But I don't know that.
Do you think he's leaving money on the table? He's leaving $5 on the table?
I think he's leaving several dollars on the table.
Oh,
yes.
there's no doubt. I think it's interesting because, well, I'm a first-time novelist, so very few people have heard of Rob Reed, the science fiction novelist. And so
I understand.
Yeah, from my standpoint, I just think it's great that, I mean, the book is done reasonably well. It was in 2 hardcover printings, and
that's good.
And it's sold in the tens of thousands, which is good for a first novel. But I'm just excited that this should, I think, expand the audience a lot, at least for a week. But, you know, if it gets out there and more people read it, I think that Random House's thinking here is in getting the ebook out there very inexpensively. Maybe people will discover it in advance of the holidays and give it to their geeky friends or something like that. The paperback's recently out, so that's probably part of the thinking.
What's the press run on the paperback?
I'm sorry, what's the
press run?
I actually don't know. I'm not really good at knowing these things. I think the first hardcover, I think they told me was 14,000, and then they printed another run, and I don't know how much that was.
I never wanted to know.
Yeah, because the numbers are depressingly
so
low, right? Yeah,
it's like, really? Okay, I don't want to know that. we're not in the league of Jerry Pournelle.
Yeah, well,
point.
yeah.
Year Zero, a novel, not Year One, which was your first book.
Yes, and unrelated to this book. Unrelated, very confusingly unrelated to this book. That was a kind of a memoir of life in business school, and this is about our music-addled aliens.
Related.
I love that premise.
Isn't it a great?
Glad you do.
You know what, Jerry? I didn't know you hadn't read it. You got to read it. I'm sure Rob will send you a copy.
I'm sure I will.
Well, for 99 cents, who cares? I'll just, I'll get it right
now. You just made $1.
This is how you expand. No, I think I just made a cent.
Do they change? They change your royalty rate's a percenge.
Yeah. Oh, I think
so. You're not making much. On
maybe
this.
a couple cents a
royalty rate on 99 cents is 30%. At $3.99 and above, it's 70%.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
So I think even my publisher is getting 30 cents at 99 cents, and then I get a sliver of that. My agent gets her 15. I think I get about a penny a book. So but you don't write comedic science fiction strictly to get rich. It's a bad way to
I got to say, though, if you're willing to spend a little more, get the Audible edition because John Hodgman reads it magnificently. That kind of brings it to life.
The hell you don't write it. I completely agree with Samuel Johnson. Nobody but a blockhead ever wrote the second novel for anything but money.
This is the first one, though.
Why didn't if I'd only read Samuel Johnson, I would have saved me a few books. Taking a break. Coming back with more. Our show today brought to you by Stamps.com. The post office is closed.
Yes.
But Stamps.com
is open.
This is the time to strike Stamps.com. It's always open 24/7. You print your own postage with your computer. It's not Leo postage. Actually, you can print it with your picture on it, by the way. I bought a bunch of Leo stamps. But it's still official U.S. postage. You don't need a special ink or a postage meter. In fact, the other day I was reading the cost of the ink on a postage meter is something like 100 times more than inkjet ink, which is already outrageous.
Wow.
It's just a scam. You don't need a postage meter. You just need Stamps.com, your own printer, your own computer, and you can save money on international mail. You can save money on priority mail. It'll do everything you need. You'll never have to go to the post office again. Is mail delivery? Does the mail carrier still come into the door?
I think so.
I think so.
They're quasi-independent.
Oh, that's right. They're not a federal. That's right. They're doing their own thing.
If they weren't doing it, then this would be a bad time to promote Stamps.com because you could buy the stamp.
There'd be no delivery.
But there would be no subsequent delivery.
No, there is. We have delivery.
The delivery is on, I believe.
Stamps.com customers printed over $1 billion with a B dollars in postage just last year alone. It is fabulous. We use it all the time here in the office, and we want to give you a chance to try it out. Small business, big business, it doesn't matter. Stamps.com is better than the way you're doing it. I guarantee you. Now, you're going to go to the front page. You see the $80 no-risk trial. Do me a favor. Click the microphone. It says, heard us on a radio or podcast. Click the microphone and enter in the offer code TWIT, and your offer will be $110 bonus value because they upped the free postage, $55, up to $55 in postage coupons to be used over the first few months of your account. You also get that USB scale, which means you never over or underpay for postage. You get a $5 supply kit and, of course, a 4-week trial of Stamps.com. Really a great company and a great solution. I want you to try it. And yes, it works even during federal shutdowns. Stamps.com. We were talking about that before the show began. There's a beautiful tourist destination in San Francisco called the Cliff House, which is out on beautiful on Ocean Beach and just gorgeous. It's, of course, shut down because they're a concessionaire of the federal government. It's a private company, but it's on federal land, on parkland.
So the land molecules can't work.
Right.
And therefore
the restaurant
business
must close.
The restaurant, which is staffed with non-federal employees, cannot open because the land molecules are furloughed.
Bizarre. And then up literally half a block away is Louis, where you can get a great burger, but it's kind of like, a small place. And it's still open, even though they're a leasee instead of a concessionaire, and so they're allowed to run, but not. It's very confusing. They're both on parkland. It's very strange. So if you're coming to San Francisco, wait till the shutdown is over. The city's okay, though. It's still going.
Just don't try to go to Alcatraz, right?
That's Alcatraz
that's going to be closed, right?
We had Ranger Craig from Alcatraz was in the studio audience this week. I said, Ranger, what are you doing here? He said, I got nothing to do.
Furloughed.
I'm out, sitting around. He brought me Al Capone's cup.
Awesome.
Wow. Yeah. Well,
sweet.
I thought. Here it comes.
Did it have a sticker on the bottom that said $5.99?
Yeah. Look at this. It's Al Capone's tin cup from Alcatraz. Look at that. Except on the bottom it says in fine print reproduction. But
made in China.
Look at that. Let me out of here. Let me out of here. Warden.
Bang, bang, bang. Yeah. I got your book.
Did you? You bought
it?
Good. Look at that.
Yeah,
Look at that.
On my Kindle.
That's
Thank
just
you
how
kindly.
easy it is. And John has done it too. So you've made 2 cents.
And Jerry, you rocked my world by laughing so hard at the premise. I'm delighted that you find it to be a fun idea. That's really cool.
Yeah, okay. Now you're getting 99 cents. You're getting 30 cents. Or you're
Random House is getting 30 cents.
What Random House?
So Amazon takes 70%? Is that right?
If you're under $2.99, and Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is if you charge less than $2.99, they take 70%. If you charge between $2.99 and $9.99, it's a strong nudge to use that price range. You get 70%. So they invert it. But my guess is Random House has their own deal.
Why would Amazon not want 99-cent books?
Because they're pricing. Because the sales are essentially. Price indifferent above that.
That they've made the same observation you did.
They made the same observation that we did. Now my books are, some of them I put up myself just to make sure I knew how to do it. Most of them are put up by my agent, who was the agent for the book in the hardbound editions in the first place. We get 70%. She takes 15% off the 70% and sends the rest to me. And Amazon, unlike most publishers, Amazon pays monthly, not just on credible threat of lawsuit. and they don't accumulate 6 months worth and pay it to you. They pay it monthly.
Lord. Are these books, Jerry, that you've written and published yourself?
I'm making several $1,000s a month off of my backlist.
Isn't that awesome? I think
these
that's
are self-published books, not books that published through.
These are basically self-published. You got to remember, Lucifer's Hammer was written in 1974. Nobody bought electronic rights in 1974.
Right.
They didn't know what they were, and I never sold them when they began to exist. I always crossed anything like that out of my contracts. Yep. Unlike a lot of my friends who didn't take my advice, and some of them are now having to split their money with the publishers. But I presume the publisher gives you half of what it gets.
I don't know. With the electronic, I think it's the same royalty rate, or maybe it's 20%, which I think is a little higher than physical books.
I wrote a syndicated
so if we assume that's right.
Look at it carefully or talk to your agent about it, because that's a bad contract. Your agent should.
Oh, I know.
First-time novelist,
first-timer,
long-time listener.
Totally noob.
Yeah.
Total newbie.
% to look out for your interest, for God's sake.
So the next, I mentioned that Windows 8.1 comes out this week. We don't know, but we think the Nexus 5 is going to be out, the new Google phone. This is a video that appeared on smartphones.sfr.fr of something that absolutely looks like a Nexus 5. This was posted to Android Police. It is built by LG. We do think we know that. It is running the new version, KitKat, although it says, if you look closely, key lime pie.
Wow.
That seems wrong. Key
Right
lime
letter.
pie. Yeah.
Right letter with a K.
Yeah.
Maybe that was before
Well,
Nestle came in with a big Kit
Well,
Kat
that's what's
branding
weird about
campaign.
this, because it was going to be key lime pie.
Yeah,
we thought.
that makes sense. That's consistent with their typical.
So, but it puzzles me whether the validity of this perhaps.
In the article, it says that it's just running an older version of the software, but
software.
the hardware seems to be a prototype, because if you look on the back, there isn't even Nexus branding. It's a clear back.
So somewhere somebody got this in a bar somewhere, and so we do know that this is coming because it got through FCC certification right up to the point where the government shut down. That's something, by the way, I didn't really thought of, but that could slow down release of new phones because FCC certification is held up now.
Yeah, I guess it would be.
Yeah, so we thought that there were rumors that we'd expect this on Monday, perhaps. I don't know. We'll be interested. The Nexus phones people are very interested in those Nexus phones for several reasons. One, it's a pure Google experience. It's somewhat guaranteed to have the latest version. In fact, this would be the first phone with Android 4.4 available. But also because Google has been very cheap. The Nexus 4 was like $230,
and this one's
I
been
think
rumored at
the
$199.
pure Google experience thing should not be underestimated, because unlike Samsung and HTC and all the other vendors, Google doesn't put extra stuff
I agree.
on top of the operating system, force you to use a user interface that you don't want. Google engineers actually understand something about UI. They keep it simple. You're going to be on the same hardware. It's going to be faster. And people actually pay extra, for example, for a Samsung Galaxy 4 that doesn't have the Samsung stuff on it. The hardware is fine. It's the operating system.
How's the camera?
It's great. It's adequate. It's fine.
We don't know on the Nexus 5.
on
The
this
Nexus 4 camera wasn't great, but it was okay. You mean
One
the camera
thing that
software or the camera hardware?
Both. One thing that keeps me with Apple is that I don't have to carry an extra camera, because
there's no
iPhone
question.
is just a good enough camera.
Well, especially with the new
5S is
iPhone,
much
there's no
better.
question this is still the best camera out there.
Yeah, with
I
the
do
new
think the
flash is
Galaxy S.
fabulous.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Galaxy S4, and by the way, I have a Galaxy Note 3, which has the same camera at 13 megapixels, is a very good camera. But something about Apple and what they do, I don't know if it's a software, but they consistently still, I think, produce the most accurate.
I feel like
I
they got
did
a
an
better
A/B
sensor in
test
there.
with the-
Might be.
I took an iPhone 5S and an iPhone 5 and held them next to each other, took identical pictures in the same lighting. In every single case, the 5S was dramatically better than the 5. And I never knew the 5 was bad. I loved my 5.
I know.
But
I mean,
the
that's
difference is
improving on
dramatic.
what was the best camera out there. So this is an f2 aperture, so it's a little bit better in low light. It's the same number of lenses, but maybe they've done something with the coatings or something. But you were mentioning, Rob, the flash.
The dual light. Yeah, I think the fact that they can do automatic white balance, and I think they have 1,000 different settings or something that they pivot between, is probably what is going to make those really, really visible impact on any image that actually uses the flash. I mean, I think that's a fascinating. I mean, I don't have one yet, so I'm just parroting what I've read, but that feels like a major, major step forward. Whereas there's not a lot else, it doesn't seem, in the lens array or in the in the sensor that's radically different.
No, in fact, I think they're buying Sony sensors. The other thing would be, of course, the software, and I think something about what Apple. Let me see. I don't know if a flash will go off here. No, I wish I got to get the flash to go off. Maybe I'll shoot.
You can
I'll
shift
shoot
it
my
from auto
crotch.
to.
Shoot
You can shift it
yourself.
from auto to on.
A little selfie.
Wiener.
It's
Andrew
on-
Wiener selfie.
Andrew Wiener style. I'll just turn it on. How about that? Let's see. Shoot under the table.
Leo Wiener.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. So this is, that looks pretty, for a shot under the table, that looks pretty good. Yeah, John, I got to talk to you about your wiring. You can't really see that on camera, but it's actually quite a nice, accurate shot. So what they've done is there's a warm and there's a cool LED, and they will mix the two depending.
Yeah.
So it apparently takes two pictures. As soon as it assesses the white balance, it will then balance these little flashes to make that work. Somebody's saying, well, what about the Lumia 1020? Everybody agrees that's a better camera. I don't know. I think this is still a better camera. Larry, have you tried both the 1020
Yeah,
and
I
the...
have. And I think that, the Lumia 1020, the big deal, of course, is at 44 megapixels.
41 megapixels.
40 megapixels. So you can crop or take of them. But for the kind of pictures that I use my smartphone for, look, it's not an SLR. I don't use it when I'm going off to Africa to a safari and I want to get the best possible picture of that elephant, 50 feet away. It's the picture. It's the camera you use when you're out to dinner, when you're going about your business. And the iPhone is much more than adequate for the kind of snapshots that I use it for. And, is Illumina better? You can argue it is based on that cropping, but then you have to take into consideration the simplicity of the software,
right.
The entire user interface. And at the end of the day, I'm sticking with the iPhone.
It just seems more satisfying pictures.
Yeah.
For some reason. It's ineffable.
The best camera is the one that you have with you.
Well, that's
and
true,
then also, the one that you're going to use the most. And so I think, in complete agreement with what Larry said, it's if it's friction free and it's easy to use and it's in your pocket, that's the best possible camera. Yeah. However many megapixels. I mean, there's just not enough. There's just not enough lens in these things to really take full advantage of a 21 megapixel shot. I would rather than have another dozen megapixels, and I'm sure we won't see this for a while. I personally would rather have a camera that shoots in RAW because you can do a lot with a RAW file if you have software like Lightroom and so forth. So rather than get bazillion more pixels, I would rather shoot in RAW and have some fun with the image that I couldn't necessarily have with a JPEG. But that's I'm an extreme edge case. So
you probably also have an SLR or other cameras.
Right. I do, yeah.
I've
got the Sony RX100, which is a pocket-sized camera.
Amazing camera. I have that too.
It's
breathtaking.
That's what I carry these days. I don't even carry my SLR ever.
I just went on safari, so I carried my SLR for the first time in a really long time because the RX100 is a mind-blowingly good camera.
Yeah. $600.
Yep.
It's a point and shoot.
It's a point and shoot that shoots in RAW. It has a Carl Zeiss lens. It's got ample megapixels. It's 20-something, I think.
20.2.
Plenty. And it's got incredible low noise performance. I took it to see...
Is it an Exmor sensor? They're using their...
I am not
high-end
sure.
sensor. Yeah,
I took it because I figured I could get it into a concert when the Stones came around a few months ago.
It's so funny. They won't let you. They measure the lens.
Yes.
They'll actually measure, and you can have a 3-inch or less lens.
I had this little
They're not going to
box.
Stop you.
So no, they didn't. I mean, the pictures that I got, obviously I'm an easy judge of my own pictures, but I thought they were phenomenal. And so the low light performance is incredible and the strange color performance and all those things you have in a concert. But the key was it does shoot in RAW. And so if you do, once you get the image, if you're pretty good in Lightroom or another RAW processing program, you can do amazing things with the beautiful images that the RX100 gets.
Can you see this, guys? Can you see this guy?
Show what is that?
It's the iPhone next to the RX100. I mean,
it's smaller than an iPhone.
It's thicker, but
it's thicker, and I've got the lens full out. But it does fit easily into a pant pocket. At least
Sony's killing it. The NEX series for these more prosumer grade interchangeable lens. I gave my son there's a Santorini. Look at that. I gave my son for a graduation present an NEX7, and he's loving it. And the images he gets, those E-series lenses are really, really good.
And again,
Where'd you
getting
go
back
in Santorini?
We went to Ia, of course, and we were only there for a day. We were on a cruise, but we just got back from the Greek islands. It was it's gorgeous. Isn't it amazing?
I spent a week in Santorini with the head of the Greek culture.
It's a beautiful
losing
place.
His name at the palace down where they dug up the old palace of the Minoan civilization. There, I was going to write a.
They think it might be the Atlantis.
Atlantis. That's of course was the Spiridon Marinatos is the guy. I spent a week with him there. He was the one who came up with that hypothesis in 1939, and I was going to write a novel about it. But the problem was that the civilization was so damned attractive that I really had trouble writing a novel about a disaster that wiped it out. I just literally had emotional problems writing that.
Yeah.
So
I don't blame you.
Something else. But I loved Santorini. I spent a week there. We have a scene set on Santorini in Lucifer's Hammer with some people up on Mount Prophet Elias when the comet hits.
Akrotiri is the is the archaeological.
As long as they're doing travel logs.
Akrotiri is what? Yes, right. Yeah.
So I'm headed to Bali next week. Believe it or not, on business at the Internet Governance Forum.
I'm with a bunch of jet setters on this show.
Anybody out there knows interesting things to do to Bali, go to larrysworld.com and find, or any of these websites, and send me a note.
Mostly just lie on the beach, I think, but I don't know.
There's amazing temples there, actually. What's cool, not to turn this into a travel log, what's
Eat, Pray, Love was in Bali, wasn't it?
I don't know. I haven't read it. But what's great about Bali is it has a lot of really magnificent temples and things that you see in lots of countries. But what's cool about Bali is it's a very living religion. Like all those temples, grand and ancient as they are used every day. So it's very vibrant.
That's neat.
It's really vibrant, and it's an interesting place. And make sure you go to Ubud. Everybody will tell you that. But that's a cool city in the center of the island that has a lot to it.
Every time I'm about to travel, I'll have to come on Leo's show to get some advice.
No kidding. Wow.
If you ever plan on getting married and you're not particular about the religion in which you were married, David M. and his wife were married on Bali about 25 years ago, and from everything she has told me, it was the most magnificent wedding I've ever heard of.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was.
Was it? Did they? No Elvis impersonators.
It was one of those rituals. She didn't understand half the ritual, of course.
Right.
But it's valid in the United States, and they've been
What is the
married
religion?
It's actually in Bali, it's Hindu. So it's an overwhelmingly Muslim country in Indonesia, of course, but Bali is a predominantly, not entirely, but predominantly Hindu island. But it's also kind of an unusual branch of the Hindu religion. It's not as Hinduism is typically practiced in India, but that's where my knowledge runs out. But it's predominantly Hindu, which is very unusual in Indonesia.
Getting back to the Google phone.
Yes, indeed.
The Google experience, I have to underscore what you're saying, Larry, although that's only recent. The first Google phones, the first versions of Android, Cupcake and Donut and Eclair, were god-awful. And
they were.
At the time, I think, and I actually spoke to the guy who designed Motorola Blur, and he said at the time we had to, not merely for carrier differentiation or manufacturer differentiation, but because Google really hadn't nailed it yet.
Yeah.
But I think certainly since Ice Cream Sandwich, the OS finally has a good UI, and these carrier or manufacturer extensions really aren't any good. I have a Note 3 here, which I love the hardware of, but God, the TouchWiz it's non-standard, and so it just seems to get in the way, right? It's got weird, it's got 4 pages of settings, which makes it very difficult to figure out what's going on. Of course, it's got all the Galaxy cruft, and that takes up a lot of space on these things.
I had a very, very early Android. I don't remember what OS it was, but it was, maybe a year into it. And at that point, the design philosophy seemed to be why click once when you can click 4 times.
Right.
And it kind of drove me nuts, and I fled back to the iPhone. But I've been hearing wonderful things about the recent releases.
Well, let me show you, for instance,
So, Leo, are you going to forgive me if I keep my iPhone?
Keep your eye. Forgive you. What do you think is sitting here right next to me? It's an iPhone.
Gold.
Yes. Well, I'm the guy who stayed with the iPhone during that period when you trashed it every possible time you could on the radio.
Oh, I think you're being hard on me.
Well, not
I still prefer Android for a number of reasons, but I don't say you shouldn't have an iPhone. I think for a lot of people, the iPhone's absolutely the right choice. But here's an example. It's very clear, as you said, it's Apple's way or the highway. Apple has a way of doing it. You can't do it any other way, but if you like the way Apple does it, stick with it. The advantage, of course, of Android is you can anything you want. But here's a good example. This is Samsung's camera app, which is so loaded with bizarre junk that you don't need, frankly, I don't need a golf mode.
Fireworks on the beach mode.
I do not need some of these. Here's Best Face. It takes 5 consecutive pictures, and then you smoosh the ones of the different faces, and it merges them into one.
Is there a baseball in the snow mode? I've always wanted that.
Well, that's probably this sports
Only
mode.
for left-handed baseball.
This is like Crayola, 928 settings.
It's nuts.
That is maddening.
How about summoning demons mode?
No, my wife just, she misplaced her HTC phone when we were traveling, and I gave her a Samsung Galaxy S4, and back to the learning curve. She didn't know how to use it.
Yeah,
she's a smart lady.
And I use Galaxy. I use Galaxy phones. I had an S2, S3, S4, and so I know how to use it, but I don't want it. I don't want it. And so I could see why there's a market. That's why there's a lot of interest in the Nexus 5. It's not merely price. It's, as you said, Larry, it's the cleanliness of the interface. The Moto X, which is what I took on my trip and what I continue to use, is kind of the best of both worlds. There's some Motorola improvements, but it's essentially Google. Yeah. And I'm very happy with that phone.
The other thing that fascinates me about the Note is just how big it is. Well, I mean, compare that to the iPhone. It looks like, you know what it reminds me of? You know, in the new Fox News studio, they have those
the big-ass tablets.
Aren't those Notes? Galaxy Notes, those huge 80-inch. Yeah.
Actually, what those are, and that's, in fact, we should probably show that video.
It is very funny.
It looks like there's something wrong. Like maybe they've hired tiny interns.
Tiny interns. Yeah, it looks like something out of The Onion.
I thought it was an Onion.
And I think that those are Galaxy Notes. I really no.
I'll tell you what they are. They're pixel perfect.
They're 55-inch.
It's what Microsoft bought this company. They make an 85 and a 55. Oh, God. But what's weird is it's 1080p, so it's not super high resolution. And these poor guys, look at this guy on the right, who's tapping over and over again, I might add, the same tweet. And it's giant. It's huge.
The pixels are like 1 square inch on that. Yeah. Like they get the 80-inch ones in there.
I feel bad, mocking Shepard Smith, because poor Shepard, this is his new show. And somebody had the bright idea, let's build a set that is somehow modern. And they say in this, and I think this is true, we're having a hard time reaching a new generation of people who don't consume news in a linear fashion.
So I know, get big touch screens.
That's going to get them in.
Right on it.
They'll want to watch that.
It's linear news, but there are big touch screens in the background.
And then I don't know if you could find this, Chad, but there's a hysterical segment where they have a giant wall with tweets, and they have 3 columns. They have breaking tweets, unconfirmed tweets, and then confirmed tweets. And they say, our staff is going through, this is how they're gathering news, going through tweets to see if they're real. And then we move them into the confirmed column.
With a big arm motion.
Journalists that did their own research, that actually went out and did reporting.
This is,
Fox News isn't using huge tablets on the set. They just hired a bunch of really small staffers.
Padre SJ wrote that tweet.
That was Padre SJ's tweet. Yeah. It's a problem. It's not just Fox. It's a problem all television is having right now. It's reaching anybody under 35. Yeah, because in fact, we just found out that the millennials are like 50% of the millennials never watch television. Yeah, like never.
Hey, Leo, why do you think they advertise Lipitor on the evening news?
Because, I'm fascinated by those ads. I'm trying to decide which blood pressure medicine is best for me, and so I'm glad that they have those ads. They're very timely for people like me.
Well, you and I are their demographic.
We're their audience. We're their audience.
Is that Jon Stewart?
I swear I thought this was an Onion.
Well, when I saw that, I momentarily thought it was Jon Stewart. I was like, okay, here comes the joke.
And then, see, there it is. There's the Twitter columns. I feel like this is kind of shooting ducks in a pond.
Control.
It's
the size of those tweets.
Oh, and they call them bats, right? Big area tablets.
He said big area touchscreens, but we know BAT stands for big ass table.
No doubt.
Absolutely. All right, Let's take a break. We're going to come back with more. We're having fun getting through the news. iPhone 5S, we might talk a little bit about that. A couple of weeks later, it came out while I was gone. I was able to get one, the fingerprint scanner. Is this making a difference? But to go with the Note 3, I've got the Galaxy Gear Watch. We could talk a little bit about that. Some big changes in privacy settings on Google and Facebook. There's a lot to talk about, including Nick Bilton's new book. We're going to try to get Nick soon on one of our shows. We love Nick, New York Times writer. His new book is a very interesting, I thought, at least the excerpts I read, History of Twitter.
Mind-blowing.
Wasn't that amazing?
Oh, gosh.
All right, lots to talk about. And Comic-Con hijacking its users' Twitter. So that's another good one. But first, let's talk a little bit about our friends at Citrix and a product that you probably have used. If not, you ought to use it, called GoToMeeting. It's been around for, I think, 10 years now and has become, by far, the dominant online meeting software for good reason. They just make it better all the time. GoToMeeting allows you to share screens. Of course, it's done that for years. And now you can see each other face-to-face with HD faces, crystal clear video. So now you're on the same page with your team. Yeah, nobody likes meetings. But if you've got a meeting And you do have to meet, I think. It's the only way to really cut through, the clutter. We often, in fact, Lisa has a great rule. If 5 emails go back and forth on a topic, that's it. We're meeting, right? The only way to cut through this. Otherwise, it just goes on endlessly. But if you're going to have a meeting, you want to make it efficient. You want to make it effective. And GoToMeeting really does. You can share the screen, be on the same page, see each other. It's great for team building, for solving problems, for making it work. You get a built-in, of course, bridge, phone bridge, but you can also use the built-in audio and video on your computer, your laptop, or your iPad. You could present from your iPad, which is a lot of fun. If you're out in your backyard enjoying life and you want to have a meeting, you still can. We want you to try it free, 30 days free, if you visit GoToMeeting.com and use the promo code TWIT, T-W-I-T. 30 days free. GoToMeeting, a very impactful way to do something nobody wants to do, but everybody has to do. Get together and meet with your team. GoToMeeting.com. Try it today. Please, if you would, use the offer code TWIT. Jerry, you're an iPhone. Did you get the iPhone 5S?
I haven't yet. I'm still 4G, and I'm about to upgrade to something else. Tell me what I ought to get.
Well, they have 2 new models. They have the 5C, the colorful model, and I've started to see ads. I just saw ads in the NFL this morning, and in which they say the C is for colorful characters, and they have all these kind of wacky people.
Cheaper.
I couldn't care less about that.
It's basically a 5. So what's of interest, I guess, with the new iPhone is the fingerprint scanner. That's it is a faster processor. It is otherwise identical form factor. You can now get it in gold as well as space gray and white. And then we mentioned the flash and the camera.
Yep.
But the fingerprint reader is the big thing.
That's
and
the biggie.
It does work well. I mean, here, I'll show you. So when I turn on, what did I do? I turn on my phone, and I just put my fingerprint on here. You can, of course, slide to unlock and enter in a passcode, but if you put your fingerprint on there, it unlocks it. You can do that to buy apps on the App Store or buy music on iTunes, and it works quite well. I'm waiting to see how long before Apple releases an API for third parties to use this.
Absolutely.
Because that could make it very interesting, right?
Very, very.
We don't know how reliable it is. Apple is apparently, I talked to a security expert when I was in Turkey, Jamal, and he said Apple uses 9 points of similarity. So what that means is it's very quick to register a fingerprint, and it's very reliable, but it also means there are more collisions.
So there's false positives or false negatives?
Positives.
But that's probably going to be 1 out of 50,000 people or something.
How did you know? That's exactly the number.
I really just pulled that out of the air.
That is
right?
scary.
How about that?
That is exactly right.
But to be a very cunning thief to look at your fingers or stealing your iPhone. It's like, oh yeah, there's a guy in my gang who's got that whirl.
It seems unlikely.
It seems really unlikely.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah. What I want them to do is to take the fingerprint of the guy who stole my phone as he's trying to turn it on and zap that off.
Oh, wouldn't that? They can't do
would
that.
Be pretty clever.
And in fact, the reason they don't do that is because people were a little bit concerned privacy-wise that Apple might be storing fingerprints. Right. They don't. They take
right locally. It's
they take
locally.
but not even the fingerprint, not an image, but a hash.
Yeah.
So they look at the fingerprint. You do it a few times to register the fingerprint. They hash that. And that way, when you do it again, it will generate a similar hash. If it's close enough, they say, okay, that's a match.
Well, that's certainly got to be more secure than a 4-digit number.
I would guess so. I mean, that's
or
only
no
10,000.
4-digit number, which is half of all people, don't even bother.
That's what Apple said, right? No, half of all people.
And it's like an automatic. It's like an airbag. It's like half of people weren't using seatbelts anyway. Maybe they're not that much better than a seatbelt, but for those who, it really protects those who aren't actually using.
What I wonder, Leo, because I've tested it and it worked fine. I don't have an iPhone 5S at the moment, but do you find yourself allowing it to lock more automatically more often? So, for example, on my phone, I just have it lock every hour or two because it's such a hassle.
I want it to lock all the time. Lock right away.
Unlock now.
Yeah. I just put my finger on it.
That's probably the biggest deal. The fact that you're keeping it locked all the time.
Yep,
absolutely.
Probably more important than the fact that it's a fingerprint.
Absolutely.
It's like the airbag. It's just always on and it's friction free. You don't have to think about it at all. That's the reason. And I hope the new iPads have that too, because they've got a meeting. They've got a program coming up, right? A big.
That's okay.
Let's
move on to that. We don't know for sure.
I'm very interested in iPads because my 14-year-old granddaughter, her parents have finally decided that she can have an iPad, and I want to buy her one for Christmas. So I want to know exactly what to get as the right one to get her.
Well, we don't know, of course. John Pachkowski on of All Things Digital, who seems to have pretty good connections with Apple, has said, and most people agree, that it will be the 22nd. It was the 23rd last year.
Yep.
I think we can pretty safely say it will be new iPads. There is some question about whether they'll do a new Mini, and if they do, will there be a new Retina Mini?
Presumably. I mean,
apparently it's technically difficult.
Oh, okay. Well, not presumably.
That's the question. The issue is battery life.
Yep.
You put a lot of pixels on that screen. It gets hard to get you the 10 hours that Apple wants.
Well, they'll have an it'll have an A7 chip, presumably, the new line. Without the fingerprint scanner, it's hard to think of what they could add to an iPad on October 22nd or 23rd that would really be that revolutionary.
Well, that's a good point. There's not if you have a fourth generation iPad, a better camera, maybe
more memory. I
don't think anybody's going to. Apple doesn't even talk about the memory. You mean more storage?
More storage. I'm sorry. Yeah, more storage. I mean, the thing that here's a little thing that bugs me a little. I mean, as a long-term,
it have to be 128 gigs and.
Well, the 128 is the top end now. Maybe they go to a point where it goes to 64, 128, 256 or something like that. Yeah, but I mean, without the fingerprint authentication, it's hard to think of anything that they could do with a new line of iPads that would have people stampeding. Now, they could do the thing that intrigues me about the 5C. By the way,
that's a problem Apple has in general.
The stampede?
Well, just you've got a very mature product.
Right.
That kind of does everything. It's like the Microsoft Word problem.
And
how do you make it better?
Well, this is exactly what they did. You remember the iPod Mini, 2004. They'd kind of done everything you'd think they could do with an iPod. This was before the Touch, which did revolutionize everything. That was kind of an iPhone. They came out with them in different colors. That was it. So the iPod Mini came out, I think, in blue and silver and pink as well, like the 5C, and just the mere profusion, the existence of colors really excited the market. And from what we've been seeing this week, there was a survey that was done that said not only is the 5S outselling every other phone with all of the carriers, so is the 5C. I didn't think anybody was buying the 5C, but apparently it's moving, and people like their colors. So maybe the iPad will come out in lots of cool colors.
Okay.
I mean,
that wouldn't get me stampeding in the store, but
typical market they're going after with these colors. I mean, I agree with Jerry. I could care less. First, I'm going to put a case on it anyway, but for reasons that don't make a lot of sense for me. People love colors, but when you think about cars, I mean, people spend extra money or go way out of their way to order a car in the color they love. So why not a phone?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think to answer your question, Jerry, the one to look at and see what happens if it's October 22nd, the one to watch is the iPad Mini. I think for most people, that's actually better than the 9.7-inch, especially the only thing lacking on the Mini last year was the Retina display. If they could put a Retina display on a Mini, I think that's the sweet spot. And I think sales figures have shown that that's the one people want. The Mini is
Leo, I have an iPad Mini, and I've got the new iPad, and I've got tablets with super high res, and I don't recall ever looking at my iPad Mini and thinking, "Oh, gee, I wish the display were better."
I did.
It's fun.
I did. No. But do you use Retina? You use Retina all the time?
I've gone back and forth, but what I use my Mini for is reading and watching movies.
I notice it.
It's adequate.
I really notice it, and it's not painful, but it's definitely less than optimal. I think that's the thing for them to do next. I mean, if they don't have a lot of room to grow.
Yeah.
I like the Nexus 7. The point, of course, the Nexus 7 is Retina. It's very high resolution, but it's 25% less screen real estate than an iPad Mini would be. So that's the issue: is are you going to kill battery life and give yourself a Retina, or have they solved this?
And maybe it'll be something like a turbo button on some cars where you flip on the Retina.
What do you care about
burn
battery?
Through the battery because I'm near a.
But I'm thinking your niece. I think in your niece. By the way, Jerry, who probably does care about color, but I'm thinking that the iPad Mini is the right one. But watch and see what they do with it.
It's my really bright granddaughter, and I would like to get her something good. But
well, that's the other thing. It's very personal between the 9.7 and the 7.9. It's not. I like the Mini. I think it's really good, but not everybody agrees with me, so I don't know.
I guess I'll ask her about the size if she'd prefer because she knows pretty well what I'm going to get her. So.
She's going to say, I want one of those things that Shep had in his studio. Those giant.
I want giant. What is that giant
bat.
tablet?
I want a bat,
Daddy.
I want a bat, Grandpa.
Give me a bat. She might want this new Chromebook. Google has announced a new Chromebook. Yeah. This is the HP edition of the Chromebook running. Oh, my God. Are you okay, Larry?
I'm okay. My camera's
Oh my God, he fell over.
Upside
I got
down.
one upstairs. Do you have one to
He's
show?
in the
'Cause I
space
actually
station.
have one upstairs I can go grab.
Yeah, go ahead. You want to go get the Chromebook while I talk
hang on.
about it? $279. This is a new one from HP. I think it's 2.3 pounds. I'm trying to think if it's Haswell or not. It does come in color accents.
look at that.
Yeah, it's kind of pretty.
Yeah.
The design, according to
Those
Engadget,
are the 5C colors, actually.
Isn't that
RGB and yellow.
well, what they are is
the
the
missing
Google. They're
pink.
also the Google colors,
Right,
right?
yeah,
That's
that makes
the Google
perfect
color.
sense, yeah.
According to Engadget, the design is screwless, screw-free. I don't know how they do that. No vents, no fans. It is an Exynos.
Yeah, that scared me when I saw that spec. I'd think it'd get kind of hot.
Man, well, you know what? It's not. You know, these things aren't working too hot. The Exynos is an ARM-based processor designed actually originally for smartphones. 2 gigs of RAM, not a lot. 16 gig SSD, Wi-Fi up to N. Apparently, a 4G option will be available. But the thing that's I think most interesting about this is that it charges via micro USB.
Ooh.
It uses the same charger your phone uses.
Ooh.
I know, isn't that odd?
I want fewer cables. I like that.
Yeah.
Fewer cables is better.
You already have the charger.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, I like the fact that my iPhone and my iPad use the same charging cable.
Yeah, more and more I want to see that. I
But
mean,
you got to make sure they're of the same generation.
So-
I still have an old
so I-
iPad.
Yeah.
And a new
didn't
iPhone,
expect
so I've got to carry both. Ugh, it
so
drives me
annoying.
nuts.
So you
I
like
didn't
that,
expect-
Larry? If it feels
I
good
didn't
to you?
expect to like it, but I actually love it.
Yeah.
I love the size. I like it better than the Pixel. I like how light it is. It's the same weight as the 11-inch MacBook Air, except for it costs like $279.
Well, you could buy
versus-
five. You could buy five of them for the cost of one pixel. So that's
Keyboard
good.
is
In different
fine.
colors,
The screen
yeah.
is adequate, and the reality is, sure. Would I take this with me on my trip to Bali? Actually, I might stick it in my suitcase because it weighs so little bit. But of course, I have to have a real computer, so there's no way I'm going to travel without a Mac or a Windows computer. But for around the house or for people who don't need to run Office or other apps, hey, it gets the job done, and it does it very well. I have switched my position. I used to be kind of anti-Chromebook, and after seeing this and thinking about how cheap it is, I've changed my mind. And looking forward to the Haswell ones that are coming out that actually will even have better battery life.
What are you getting on that? The Google says 6 hours.
Yeah, I haven't tested it long enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to be about 6 hours. I haven't plugged it in a while.
Pretty,
It seems to be working.
we are so spoiled now. I mean, 6 hours is a long time, but we're
Well,
so
This
spoiled.
guy, I got the MacBook 11, the 13-inch.
12 hours.
Oh, it goes on for days.
12
I mean,
hours.
Yeah,
It has
I love
changed.
mine.
I hate, this is going to sound really weird because I'm not an Apple fanboy, but it has changed my life more than any technology I've purchased in probably 10 years because I can go to a conference now and I can sit there all day and not worry about having to find a place to plug in. I can get on an airplane and fly all the way to Bali if I want to and not have to plug in. And that has really had an impact. And that's the only reason I bought it. It cost me, $1,400, but it was worth it for that alone.
I think what we're seeing, which is nice, is a lot of diversity. You have, I mean, we haven't had a new OS in ages. Android and Chrome OS have really changed the ground a little bit. I think it's pretty exciting, and I like seeing the choice. I know Chrome OS isn't enough for me. I use my Pixel as the breakfast computer.
Right.
I sit there and
I have
read the
mine-
news on it.
Yeah, that's what I need is something I can read the news on. But that's why I like tablets. With OneNote, I could not only read the news, but make the notes for my daily essay.
Right.
But actually, Jerry, you could do that with the Chromebook. You might not be able to use OneNote, but you've actually got a real keyboard. So I leave mine on my living room table, and I use it when I'm surfing the web, when I'm watching TV. But if I want to dash off an email, I appreciate the keyboard, which, of course, the iPad doesn't have built into it.
I agree with you. I've used more and more. I'm using it. It's as a replacement because of the keyboard. But it doesn't. But I can't take my photographs and put them in Lightroom and edit them on it. It's not designed to do that.
But it is cheaper than most tablets. That's what's actually interesting.
$279.
And the new one coming out.
That's kind of like they're
Cheaper than
giving it
most cell
to
phones.
you.
Well, and you got to wonder why the LA school district spent $30 million on iPads.
Sure, Google does.
You don't have to wonder
I guess you
about
don't
it
have
if
to
you
wonder.
look at kinship charts.
And what did they do? They put out a 20-year bond to pay for it.
Look out for whose brother-in-law is doing what, and it will all become clear.
It's
You're
crazy.
saying that 19 years from now, when the iPad is ancient history,
yeah, they'll still be paying for it. I'd be so pissed off if I were in the LA school district. I swear to God. And they half the price. They could get these much more functional, in my opinion, for students.
32.
Leo, tell me what school district you're in that you're not disgusted with.
Well, no, I know. I know. California in particular.
As far as I know.
But Jerry, it's your fault. It's this Jarvis Gann crap that you the prop.
Actually, goes way back to federal aid to education. If you never had that, you wouldn't have these problems.
I think here in California, where we put a cap on. I don't want to get in politics.
Property taxes.
Let's stop. Moving on.
If we didn't have Proposition 13, I couldn't live here.
I know. I understand that. I think seniors were pushed out of houses. I understand that. But
I paid $30,000 for this house. In theory, it's worth like $1 million, but I can't pay taxes on $1 million.
No, I understand that. Yeah.
I don't make that much money anymore.
There's got to be a middle ground somewhere. I don't know what it is, but let's talk about privacy. Google has changed their. Well, you know what? This is a tale of two privacy policies. Yeah. On the one hand, Facebook has decided, hey, you know what? Since you could pretty much find anybody with our social graph search anyway, we're going to turn off that feature that lets you say no one can search for me by name. And in fact, if you have that box checked on your Facebook account that says you can't search for me by name, you will get an announcement the next time you go to Facebook that says, hey, by the way, we're turning that off. Point there being that, well, you could still search for somebody by every other parameter and probably still find them. Yeah. Nevertheless, I hate to see this. I just feel like Facebook doesn't really care about privacy at all.
They don't seem to, because I think, the vast majority of the users don't particularly care. I mean, we get all up in arms about certain changes in privacy policies and so forth, but when they see less than a 1/9 of 1% of their users resigning over change X or change Y, they're just not going to worry.
Who cares?
Well, except for taking income away from private detectives, exactly who does it hurt?
Well, here's okay. I'll give you the one scenario where I feel like this is an issue.
If somebody can be found by searching Facebook, then they could be found by paying $50 to the fly-by-night detective agency, for God's sakes.
Right. I guess and that's Facebook's point of view is you're not. It's an illusion that you're hiding anything by checking that box. Yeah. But I'll give you an example. But when I was traveling, my mom said, "Well, how can I see your pictures?" I said, "Well, they're all on Facebook." And she said, "Well, I don't want a Facebook account because I don't want old high school sweethearts to be looking me up." And it's really hard. I tried to create a Facebook account for her where she could be anonymous, but it's very hard to do that.
Yeah.
And so there's the scenario where somebody says, well, all of my grandkids and kids are on Facebook and I want to see those pictures, but I don't want to have a presence on Facebook. It's very hard to do that. So what I did is I just made my profile 100% public. And Mom, just go to Leo G. Laporte and you can see everything.
See all the fake
Leo,
news.
I think the issue is people really need to know that they can control who can see what they post. And the key to any privacy at all on Facebook is to know that when you post something right below the update box, the little icon, in my case, it's almost all public because I want to post in the, I want people to read my stuff. But if I want to share it with a limited audience, I can do that. And you got to learn to do that if it matters, because I think Facebook is right that they can have search or no search. There are a million ways to find you, including your friends linking to you, including your friends sharing what you post. And so it was a false sense of security. Now, I'm not saying they should have deleted it, but I really don't think it's a big deal. Also, as they point out, they've already had deleted it for a lot of users anyway who weren't using it. They just told us about it now.
Yeah, right. You make an excellent point. And I think that is Facebook's answer, which is, well, you could do it post by post, and so you should just do that. But that's a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, it's more work. And what I don't like about that feature, frankly, is so I like to post publicly 90% of the time, but once in a while I'll post privately. And then the next time I post, it's automatically set for private, and I have to remember to go public.
It's a little fiddly.
So, and the real danger is if you want to be private and you say, okay, I'm going to post this public because I want to, and then you go back and you think you're posting privately, but you're posting publicly. So you really have to watch it. It's sticky. Every time you change it, it stays in that position until you change it again.
Now, there is one privacy setting that I really I consider important just personally, which is I want to turn off sponsored ads. I don't want an advertiser to use my name and image in an ad to my friends.
Right.
Which Google is now going to enable.
Well, and we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
let me ask, because I've seen different things. I thought I'd turn that off, but some have said you can't turn that off.
I just don't ever click like on any product or anything because for precisely that
anytime you
reason.
like something,
it means it drives me away from the activity that they're trying to encourage, I assume, because their sponsors are going to like it, of ever clicking like on a brand that I'm interested in, because I'm going to suddenly be shilling it to, all of my friends, or even worse, my Facebook friends, who include people that I don't know that well. I could
here's what
explain it away
Facebook
to my old
says.
roommate. But
Everyone wants to know what their friends like. That's why we pair ads and friends, an easy way to find products and services you're interested in based on what your friends share. Now, when I try to edit this, I say pair my social actions with ads for no one. But I've been told, and I've seen written, that doesn't change your presence in sponsored stories. So I'm not sure if that does anything or not. But anyway, just a point. You should do that. Yes.
Leo, you and I and Dvorak and some others like that, the one thing we kind of have to sell is the integrity of our opinions.
Exactly.
And that's why, for me, this is a
not-
personal issue.
That's
exactly.
scary, and that they start saying because you kind of like something, it makes it look like you're endorsing it. Is exactly what I don't want in my case.
For me, it actually could be. I could theoretically lose my job. So, for example, I had strong opinions on a California proposition a few years ago, and I shared it with my friends. But if I had publicly endorsed one side or the other, I'm violating one of the rules of CBS News, is that I cannot take a public position on a political campaign. And that doesn't mean I can't vote or talk to my friends about it, but suddenly liking something means that I'm endorsing it. And that's theoretically could get me fired.
Well, Google obviously has been looking at the revenue Facebook's making on this and said, hey, we'd like some of that money too. So Google's done it a little differently, and I kind of like this. First of all, unlike Facebook, they've announced it before they've made the change.
Right.
They've actually pre-announced it so that you have a chance to read about it, hear about it on this show, whatever.
And they did pop-ups when you hit the Google site, too. I had little pop-up windows at the very, very top that made it very plain that they're making this change. They were communicating it, which I think is good.
And there's an opt-out.
Yep.
So the idea is, just like Facebook, Google will soon be able to show users names, photos, ratings, and comments in ads, not just on Google. Now, this is one thing that's a little different, but across the web.
Well, this is beacon-y.
Yeah.
Beacon-ish.
That's what Facebook got in trouble for doing, Beacon.
Yeah.
So these ads, the Facebook stuff shows up on Facebook when your friends go to some page.
It's all internal.
But these ads would show up in Google ads everywhere,
Right.
which is a real concern to me. Now, you can't opt out, at least for now.
You have to opt out. And by the way, if you go to larrysworld.com or safekids.com, there's an article, actually it's the second article now, which links to where you can opt out. And you can, and you should, if you don't want to be shilling advertisements.
And people under the age of 18 will automatically be excluded, by the way.
Well, now, this really sounds like a matter for concern for organizations like the Authors Guild and the Science Fiction Writers of America, because if it can make it look like you're endorsing a product when all you did was say, yeah, I like that, it's all right, or I've used it, or that is actually interfering with a commercial right you have. Authors get paid money to endorse products, for God's sakes. Now, I have not done it myself because when I was writing for Byte, obviously that would have been an inappropriate thing to do. But many authors are paid money to endorse a product. Back in the cigarette days, lots of them were.
That's where all my money comes from. All of it. Every penny of it.
Yeah.
So,
and this seems like theft to me.
Yeah. Well, I always turn it off.
I mean, don't we have a constitutional right to keep our opinions, to not have them used in somebody else's ad?
I'd love to see this in a court.
That's an interesting story, Jerry.
Right?
So if you were to tell me, if you were to walk up to me and say, hey, Larry, I really like the Macintosh, I could go tell all my friends Jerry Purnell likes the Macintosh because you told me we weren't under NDA. But again, if Apple used that in an ad, then they would have to get permission and probably compensate you.
Right.
Yeah, and
they can quote an article you wrote.
Yeah.
But that's different. That's fair use.
And they're not doing that here. So I don't know.
If you want to know more, plus.google.com/settings/endorsements. It is opt-in, opt-out.
Yeah.
You are opted in automatically. In fact, you see here, I see the checkbox. Based on my activity, Google may show my name and profile photo in shared endorsements that appear in ads, and I'm just going to uncheck that, and I'm going to save it, and now they can't do it. When you disable this setting, whoa, are you sure? Your friends will be less likely to benefit from your recommendations.
So Orwellian.
So are we.
Double speak, man. I mean, that is, are you sure come on, your friend's not going to be happy about this.
Assuming your friends are Google shareholders, you're undermining them.
Your friends Larry and Sergey are going to be very upset.
Right.
And we're going to tell them.
Ooh, are you going to go on a special list?
Good grief.
Yeah, you've been knocked off of Larry's whitelist for email. He'll never respond to another one of your notes.
And on the other hand, Google was in trouble for cookies, and a federal judge, I'm pleased to say, in Delaware this week, dismissed a class action lawsuit against Google and 2 other tech companies, saying that setting a cookie on your browser is not, in fact, tracking you. Apple and Microsoft were also, what this comes from the Google kind of sneaky thing they did on the iPhone, where they went around Safari's policy for third-party cookies. There was a class action suit. The judge said the companies had circumvented browser settings, allowing browser users' personal information to be sold to ad companies, but plaintiffs cannot show they suffered because the companies collected and sold that information. Actually, now that I read this, I may not be too happy about this.
Well, it's a very classic legal decision.
You have to have
can't
some
show
consequence.
What the damage
Yeah.
is. Yes.
Right.
They're not saying it's a good thing to do or that they have a constitutional right to doing it. They're saying that in this suit, at least, you can't show that you have been damaged, and thus we have nothing to decide.
Right.
That's a different thing from endorsing the fact that Google did it. By the way, don't most of you, like me, just periodically erase all unprotected cookies?
Sure.
Nah.
I mean, I have an editor that basically lets me protect certain cookies that I want to keep there, and I just every day or so go through and say erase all unprotected cookies.
Right.
You know,
And
there
I'll
are
ask
more-
It's too much of a pain because then I have to
Jerry,
re-log
I think
in and all that stuff. I don't want to
part
do
of the
that.
No, I
problem is
don't.
Well, he
Part of the
said he had
problem
an
is-
editor which lets him say, yeah, keep my New York Times cookie, keep this one, keep
but
that.
that's a pain in the ass. You got to go through one by one.
But you
I think
I
part of the
don't
problem is
have
moral
very
panic.
many that I want to keep.
You know, we've had a series of moral panics, right? First, it was predators and it's privacy and it's security. And yeah, there are issues. I think that we have a right to privacy, but there is this notion out there that everything that monetizes information about people is somehow violating our personal privacy. And while I don't want my name associated with where I surf on the web or what I buy, and yeah, I get creeped out sometimes when I have to look at an ad based on my surfing habits, I also recognize the fact that billions of dollars are spent every year on these services, and I don't want to have to pay $1 per Google search. I don't want to have to pay for Gmail like I used to pay for MCI mail. And I'm willing to make that trade-off as long as, and this is the big question, as long as there are reasonable privacy procedures in place, as long as the government isn't necessarily dipping into those databases, which in fact they are. But the reality is that this is the world we live in, and I do think we have to analyze whether there's risk and whether there's harm. And just because it's possible that our privacy is being violated doesn't necessarily mean that it is. But again, we're getting a lot of benefit out of these services. And I'm not a Google stockholder, but I do have some concern about this sort of overreaction to what I call privacy panic.
No, I'm with you on that. And I think that's the key is to find a balance.
Agreed on that, aren't we?
Huh?
I think we're all agreed on that.
Yeah.
On the
Well, a lot
other
of people
hand, I
aren't.
will argue with you on one thing, Larry. I really wish that I had to pay a penny every time I sent an email on the condition that anybody else who did also had to.
Yeah, I've
But
given
Jerry,
up.
remember
I've
when it
given
was
up on
50
email.
cents?
Or
Used to
even
be
a 10th of a cent would do.
Right. Any
Remember it was-
barrier. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 50 cents back in the days of MCI mail, and I did it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was actually more expensive than a U.S.
50
postage stamp
cents
was
to
at the
send
time.
an email.
And I
That's what it
would
was.
far rather pay a penny per email and get it than to have to work. I've got an elaborate system of rules and spam filters, and it still isn't enough.
No.
Particularly if I'm on the road, and if God knows if I'm connected with through dial-up. Lord in heaven, it takes an hour to download my email.
Do you use Gmail?
I use Outlook, but the problem is, Postini takes care of an awful lot of it at the server level, but there still gets through a good bit of it. Now it gets taken off into the junk mail folder. I never see it, but it takes a long time for it to come in if I'm on a slow connection.
I got to say, I really like the new Gmail. First of all, Gmail eliminates spam pretty effectively.
Pretty effectively, yeah. I get very little.
And Gmail, and there's some real debate over this, but the Gmail's added these new inbox automatic filtering.
Yeah.
With primary, they have up to, I think, 5 different folders: primary, social. You could turn them on and off. Promotions, updates, and forums. And then there's automatically
is this at the server level or your level?
Server level.
Okay.
And they automatically do this, and you can correct it. You can drag. If something goes into social and should be in primary, you drag it over, or vice versa. And I found it to be surprisingly accurate right out of the box. And stuff that ends up in primary is pretty much from real people that I want to hear from.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised that given how good they are at spam, I'm not surprised that they got that right. As soon as that thing launched, I looked at it in horror. I'm like, one inbox is killing me as it is. Now I'm going to have 5? Right. Are you nuts? So I turned it right off. I didn't really
turn it on.
With it. I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I was pleased. And by the way, I was in a very highly bandwidth constrained environment on a cruise ship. So that meant I could check mail once. I was doing it on a smartphone using the Gmail app, which reflects these. And it actually worked. It did a great triage and allowed me to get the mail I really wanted and not have to worry about the mailing lists I'd subscribed to 4 years ago and keep forgetting.
My problem with Gmail spam filters is false positive. That every once in a while I'll look in my trash box or my spam box, and there will be emails that are legitimate that I actually wish I had gotten.
Really?
I've never
well, not too often, but once in a while. Enough.
And every spam filter I've ever had has managed to get me to put off stuff from people who are legitimate subscribers who've paid money to subscribe to my site, and they're sending me a message using some code words even in it, and somehow or another it got pushed off into
it could be those code
spam.
words.
I find it and I bring it back, but that takes time too.
And I accidentally ignore some of it. Some of it's PR mail, which is legitimate. It's not spam, but it may be using some kind of a list manager, and so they think it's spam. Sometimes it has
writing columns, you have to get the press releases.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm looking at my spam box, and it looks pretty good. It looks like a bunch of crap. And I don't see...
What about that loan offer, Leo?
Yeah. Customer care. I seek your consent. Business proposal. Here's some stuff in Russian.
$20 million.
That looks like what mine looks like, but every now and then there'll be something in there that is from somebody that I needed to talk to.
I have been so happy I have not looked at this ever.
Is that Gmail?
Yeah, this is my Gmail spam, and it seems like it's doing a pretty good job. I was until very recently using a third-party server-side spam filtering that was really, really good. It was one of our advertisers. And I, with trepidation, turned it off. I wanted to see how Gmail did, and I didn't notice any increase in spam.
Well, Leo, I'll give you an example. Yeah. I just looking at mine. Intuit sent me a notice: my federal income tax return was rejected. Now, that's a pretty important piece of
I'd like
email.
to see that.
That was in your spam box?
Can I show it to you?
Is it true?
No, well, it was rejected, but it was just a technical
this
error.
This email came from Nigeria.
So, like right there.
Please put in your social security number
to get your
spam box, and that's an important piece of That's an important piece of mail.
You need to correct that.
No, I corrected it.
On the other hand, those emails from the Democrats, just throw those out.
Okay.
All right. Let's take a break. Come back. We got more. Niners are winning, and all's right with the world. Leo Laporte with the great Jerry Pournelle. He is the author of some of the best books ever written and continues to write great stuff. JerryPournelle.com, the real inspiration for my career, because Chaos Manor was the first time I'd ever read any stuff that was written from the point of view of the user. And I said, yes, We can represent the user, and he's still a legend and one of my heroes. Great to have you. Rob Reed, the author of Year One, now 99 cents. Year Zero.
And Year One.
And Year One. Year Zero is the 99 cent one, and it's a rip and read, funny, provocative, and it's great sci-fi. Year Zero on Amazon, 99 cents on the Kindle version right now. And Larry Magid, what is the latest site we should be using?
Oh, you can go to safekids.com. You can go to larrysworld.com or the nonprofit kidsafely.org. But larrysworld.com is kind of a gateway to everything I do.
It's got everything. Okay.
Got everything.
And, of course, you
Pretty
hear
much.
him regularly on CBS Radio. And you just celebrated a big anniversary.
30 years as a tech. Well, I've been writing. Jerry, of course, predates me by quite a while. But I've been.
You weren't
writing,
even born when Jerry started writing about
Oh,
probably
that's
true.
not true.
Well, half the people who write today weren't born when I started writing the LA Times column.
Yeah.
And I started in 83, and I noticed that in January 84, I did a 1984 column about Big Brother watching you and the concern about the government looking at your email. And I realized that Snowden was 5 months old when I wrote that column.
Oh, wow.
And he later showed us all that it was absolutely true, unfortunately. But no, it's fun. If you go to Larry's World, you click down, you'll see the 30-year column. There's also a yellowed clipping of my first LA Times column, which is called Learn Buzzwords Before Shopping, where I told people what a disk was and RAM and ROM and a kilobyte is, because these were foreign words back then. Maybe, again, foreign words.
Well, congratulations on 30 years. There it is.
Cool.
I think we're roughly, I don't know what my anniversary is, but we're roughly the same.
Could be. Jerry, how many
ballpark.
years? When did you start writing about tech?
I think my first Byte column was in 79.
Wow. You beat me.
It actually wasn't a column then. It was an article on writing with computers, and they liked it so much they said, why don't you do this regularly? But I didn't have a contract. I was just sending them in until PC World went from monthly to biweekly, and Peter Norton was writing their column, and he didn't want to write 2 columns a month. So he said, why don't we alternate? So I told Byte, how would you like it if I wrote column for you and also one for your biggest rival? And they said, we'd hate that. And I said, but they're paying me more than you are. And they said, we'll fix that. And they doubled what they were paying me. So everything went well from there.
So if you think writing on a computer will ever catch on, or was it just a fad at the time?
Yeah, well, there was quite a conversation in those days about it.
Yeah.
Because after all, I was using like electric pencil, and you had to hit line feed at the end of each line, and there were only 64 characters to a line. And even so, my productivity went up from one novel every 2 years to about 3 a year.
I think that when I went from an IBM Selectric to an Apple II, my productivity skyrocketed, and it hasn't skyrocketed since.
But
there's been no other
addressing envelopes has
invention.
gotten so much harder.
Well,
That's
no, I
true.
kept
Love it
this
now.
electric typewriter for addressing the envelope.
Yeah, you keep it.
Right.
That's right. It's worth
I got a
something.
label printer for that.
I
No, but
would kill
seriously,
to have a Selectric.
Have you had a device since then that has given you that big a productivity boost in one upgrade from device that you're using today to a new one? Have you had anything that's even come close to that jump?
Yeah, software going from CPM thing to Q&A write in DOS probably had another big.
That was a great program. I learned about that from you.
Q&A was wonderful program. It had an AI in it that let you do all kinds of programming and response and stuff, and the editor was just great.
Who was it that wrote that?
Was Commander Eubanks was.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, Gordon Eubanks.
Gordon
I
Eubanks,
actually
who
fell in
later
love
went
with
on to
the
run Symantec, but that was
I
actually
was the
fell in
first
love with the
Symantec
WordStar
product,
Diamond.
I think. It was one of their first big products.
1985.
Jerry, you remember the WordStar Diamond where you would do Control R to go up and Control C to go down? I still use that interface with Microsoft Word. I've never gotten away from that because it is much more efficient than using arrow keys or mice or any other way to quickly get from one part of a screen to another. But that's just me.
Yeah,
Gordon
I
Eubanks
was that way for a while, but I haven't anymore for a long time.
Have you talked to Gordon Eubanks lately? He's still around, I think.
Is he?
I haven't seen him for several years. He was
He was a great guy.
He was an instructor at the Navy postgraduate school in Monterey. That's where he met.
He met Gary Kildall. Yeah.
Gary Kildall, and they were both good friends. And my son is a graduate of that. When he was a lieutenant commander, or maybe but lieutenant, he went to that school. Now I've known Eubanks a long time. But I haven't seen him in some years. I lost track of a lot of people when I got my brain burned out for the cancer.
Was he in that part of your brain?
No, but my ability to change the subject fast kind of.
I think you're still doing pretty
You're
good.
doing great, Jerry. Kidding?
I'm having a hard time keeping you on track.
Well, that could be old age.
We've digressed. No. We've digressed a lot. I mean, Jerry's like that. No, are you kidding?
No, Jerry, you're doing great.
Oh, holy cow. But I know for a period of time, and we used to talk to you during that period. I know it was tough, but you've done ever since you've come. It's been 100% recovery, has it not?
Pretty well. The only thing that hasn't come back is balance. I have to carry a cane, but I'm not frail. I just simply have to have a reference point.
Yeah. Well, and we love having you on, and it's great to see you again. We're going to take a break, come back with more. We think there's a new iPad coming. Now would be a great time to get a quote on your old iPad at Gazelle.com, and I'll tell you why. The minute they announce the new iPad, your current iPad value just plummets, but it hasn't happened yet. And the beauty of this is you can go to Gazelle.com, get a quote for your iPad, and it's good for 30 days. So here's, you're going to get a quote, and even if the value of your iPad doesn't, goes down after the new one's announced, you still can say, hey, no, you promised me, in this case, $335 for my 4th generation Apple iPad. What happens now, get this quote now, add this to your cart, get a quote on every piece of, old technology you got lying around. They'll buy iPhones, cell phones from Samsung, Apple, BlackBerry, HTC, LG, Motorola, even old Nokia phones. They'll buy tablets from Apple, Amazon, Asus. You know what? This is a good time to get a quote on your old Surface. If you're going to get the new Surface, get a quote on the Surface Pro. See what you can get in return for that. Get an offer on my 64. That's what I have, a 64 gig in good condition, power supply, touch cover. Yes. And the value of that, $300. Hey, that's good. That's going to get me a good way toward my new Surface. So what you do is you get these quotes. Then when you want to pull the trigger, and it can be like a month from now, 29 days later, you say, okay, and they'll send you the box with the mailing. They pay the mailing on anything over worth more than $1. And then they'll send you a check. You can get a PayPal coupon, or, and a little pro tip here, if you get the Amazon gift card, they'll bump it up another 5%. They buy old Macs, MacBooks. They buy Apple TVs, old cinema displays. Gazelle.com is the best way to recycle. Put some cash in your pocket. Sell it to somebody who wants your old stuff. Gazelle.com. Just out of curiosity, I asked them. They said, we've paid $100 million to over 600,000 customers in the last couple of years. No wonder. Gazelle.com. Really great people with a great product. Moving along, we were talking about this Twitter story.
We were.
I cannot wait to read Nick Bilton's book about the history of Twitter. It was excerpted in the New York Times. Now, you're an entrepreneur. You've been through this probably a few times. Were you surprised, Rob Reed, by anything that you read in here?
No, it seems like there was a lot more. There were a lot more sharp elbows around there. It's pretty brutal. Yeah, I never experienced anything like that myself, but shocked that it could happen. Certainly not.
No.
Yeah.
Well, for instance, Jack Dorsey, who was one of the people who came up with Twitter, along with Noah Glass.
Right.
Both of them were at Odeo, which was Evan Williams' podcasting company. Yep. And I remember Odeo very well because we were at podcasting at the time. And Odeo was one of the ways it's distributed. But much like Rhapsody, iTunes came along.
Yep.
That's end of the line for Odeo.
Yeah.
To his credit, Ev gave back the money to the investors. I like that. And but before even that happened, he started casting around for a new product. Jack and Noah said, hey, we got this idea for a text messaging service. Noah was the one who came up with the name Twitter, and apparently, and the story is told in this book, he went through the dictionary looking for appropriate T-words.
Yeah.
And the reason he came up with Twitter is because
frenetic or something like that. Yeah.
He was initially, okay, so Williams said, we'll call it Friend Stalker.
Yeah.
Which is a good name, but
it's probably a fun name, but probably not
a little creepy.
Yeah.
So Glass, according to Nick Bilton, writes, Glass became obsessive, flipping through a physical dictionary, almost word by word, looking for the right name. One late afternoon, alone in his apartment, he reached over to his cell phone and turned it to silent. And then, as usual, it started to vibrate. He quickly considered the name Vibrate, nixed that, tried Twitch, not right. So we're in the TWs.
Getting
Let's
close,
try
right in the
Twist, Twit. God, I'm glad he didn't pick Twit. Now, by the way, I want to point out that this is a guy running a podcast company. Perfectly well knew that there was, probably his #1 podcast was called Twit. I wish he'd kept going past Twitter, but he stopped. Twitch,
close.
Twitter, Twitchy, and
Twiny.
he read the definition: light chirping sound made by certain birds. He thought agitation or excitement, flutter, Twitter. And, in fact, that was the name, although originally spelled without vowels, TWTTR, because they couldn't get Twitter.com. What's interesting, though, is his revisionist history, particularly from Jack Dorsey, who basically stopped talking about Noah.
Yeah.
Just wrote his name out of the
Stalin
history.
style, according to this article anyway, just sort of erased him from the close-up shots. So
yeah, isn't that weird?
It is weird. Now, here's the thing that's interesting to me. So I don't know Jack. I don't know Jack Dorsey.
For a game.
But reading this as somebody who doesn't know anything about him, you cannot like this person that is depicted in this particular excerpt, as depicted there. You can't feel very good about them being the executive chairman of a company that you may or may not invest in when it goes public in a few short days.
Well, that's an interesting thing on the timing, isn't it?
That's very interesting. So when you get Nick in here, Nick covered Twitter as part of his beat for the New York Times, and he's written this story, which there's two sides to every story. We get one of them here, and Nick is an outstanding journalist. He tells the story very well. But Jack won't be able to respond, nor will Twitter, because they're in a quiet period.
And
so
my God.
It feels like a pretty, that's a haymaker punch. And they cannot respond. And so the company will be seeking to go public 10 days after this book comes out. There is a series of things in here which would lead anybody, I think, to question the character and the sincerity and perhaps even the honesty of the executive chairman of this company that wants to go public on November 15th. And they're muzzled. And I wonder if this was a business move on Nick's part to pump up sales, or I mean not to attack Twitter, but to expedite the sale of his book, because of course there's gonna be a lot of attention to Twitter in the zone of the IPO. I mean I don't know, it's crazy though, and I'm sure that they're freaking out at Twitter.
Exactly in whose interest is it to keep the IPO close low in?
Only somebody who has what?
Oh no, it wouldn't be in anybody's interest.
Somebody who's shorting them.
It would be. I think it would be in Nick's interest to sell a lot of books.
I'm thinking of competitors with enough money to hire PR companies.
I think
Pounce.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Plurk. That's it. Yeah. Jaiku.
Right. They were a sponsor, weren't they?
Yeah. No, I just loved them. Google bought them, put them out of their misery. I think of all the companies that ran at Twitter and boom.
All hit a wall.
Like Gallipoli. They just fell by the wayside.
Gallipoli with no vowels. That was another one, wasn't it? But nobody, I don't think, has an interest in torpedoing their IPO. It's more that this book comes out and they are muzzled. And so it's just an interesting, and certainly as a very sophisticated and very good tech writer, Nick must have been aware of this dynamic.
I don't know. Maybe not.
I don't know Nick either.
Now that you bring this up, it's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought about it.
Yeah.
Most authors don't really know when their book will come out.
That's a good point. Yeah.
He wrote this a while ago, right?
Yeah, he wrote it a while ago. And also, he certainly couldn't have known when the Twitter IPO would be. That's only been recently discovered. Yeah.
Other kind of surprising revelations, the story of how Evan Williams got forced out by the board, much to his shock, and how Dick Costolo, who's currently the CEO of Twitter, almost got fired in 2010.
Yep. Well, to me, the most intriguing thing about Ev is he, I believe, is the only person on earth who has ever made Robert Scoble angry.
And how did he do that?
Well, it was on your show a few weeks back. Like, Robert was really mad about something.
He was furious because Evan Williams had written, he's got a new venture called Medium.
Yeah.
which is similar to Twitter in the sense that he, for free, publishes other people's stuff and makes money on it. But, yeah, he was kind of bitching about the state of journalism, and Robert said, hey, it's his fault.
Yeah.
He has no right. Anyway, I can't wait. The book will be out, I think, next month from Penguin. It's called Hatching Twitter.
Yep.
A true story of money, power, friendship, and betrayal, with betrayal underscored.
Like a novel.
And the excerpt is extraordinary.
Oh,
it's a page turner.
worth reading.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, all these guys are going to get rich. Dorsey will make $400 to $500 million when Twitter goes public. The early engineers, however, may not get anything.
Well, it sounds like Noah Glass, who was instrumental to the creation of Twitter, again, there's two sides to every story. We just see this one. But according to that, it sounds like he was not only came up with the idea, but was then squeezed out of the company and essentially dispossessed of almost all of his shares.
That would be sad.
Yeah, it'd be tragic.
Yeah. He was Evan Williams' neighbor.
Yeah.
That's how he got involved as that. He currently, according to this, lives in an apartment that was built as an earthquake shack in San Francisco.
Isn't San Francisco real estate too expensive for things like that weren't built for their intended purpose to still be there? That's weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a story.
It's a terrible situation.
I don't, what do you think of Twitter's IPO? I feel like Twitter is a very fragile proposition.
Yeah. It's not making money yet. It is, I mean, I feel that it's embedded itself in the popular consciousness and in usage patterns in ways that other flashes in the pan.
It's
like
amazing.
Yeah, I think
no
it's here
TV
to stay.
show can be on the air without a Twitter hashtag.
So I think it's an incredibly valuable beachhead that they've seized, but they haven't figured out how to make money from it yet.
I think its mind share exceeds its market share in the sense that every journalist, every television show, every celebrity is on it, talks about it constantly, and it really has, as you say, it's become sort of part of our public vernacular. But that doesn't mean it's something that people are going to absolutely depend on. Yeah. And right now, it's doing well, but it's really hard for me to know.
Well, doing well is doing well in mind share, not doing well in revenue. It's got no. It's a big money loser. It's
doing well in terms of the number of people who use it. 200 monthly active, 200 million users. Right. That's not a bad number. It's not as good as Facebook, but still not a bad number. But again, how much time are they spending on it? What are they doing with it? These are questions, and more important, what will be the state of the art 3, 4, 5 years ago from now?
That's it.
That's what I want to know.
It feels like it's a house made of smoke. I mean, just as MySpace was replaced by Facebook almost overnight, it feels as if, although, again, we mentioned all the people who've tried to take on Twitter and failed.
And it's deliberately so lo-fi. I mean, that's the thing that's intriguing. I mean, it's not going to... You could put messages up that were a lot more than 140 characters and a lot better than text only many, many years before Twitter came along. And so they've kind of made a virtue of this sort of lo-fi aesthetic, and it works for people. You know,
it feels as if they're cashing in at the right time, at the peak.
Yeah.
About to, for
assuming
instance,
the government doesn't default on its debt and knock the market down by 75%.
That would be a bad time.
Near the peak, certainly.
IPO, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that could make it.
But one of the problems with Twitter is the click-through rate. So if you tweet, and even if you have a lot of followers, the percentage of those followers who are going to click through on any link you put in there are not as high as I think a lot of marketing people would like.
I
don't know if that's going to be a problem.
I don't even know how many people even see
damn near zero.
I don't think people read Twitter feeds particularly anymore, right?
I mean, Leo, you have an enormous number of tweets. You would be overwhelmed if people were.
I couldn't read them all, but I use Twitter as a input to, say, Flipboard and other social news sites. But that's not going to get Twitter any benefit at all.
Yeah, because it gets inhaled, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Twitter growth is slowing. Last year, 78% increase in growth. This year, 44%. That's a big slowdown, although still growing.
Yeah. And from a much bigger base.
You would kill for that kind of growth.
I know.
Yeah.
I'd love 44% growth. Yeah, we're 5% year over year. I would take 44%. But the problem with that, it's overheated, and sometimes that kind of thing can be even.
I'm still trying to figure out how they make money with it.
And sponsored posts, right?
They're doing that.
Yeah.
But the problem is, in order to make that work, and this is, you can see Twitter's strategy change over the years because of this, you have to go to twitter.com.
Right.
And
so
that's
so
why
many
they don't
people
want
don't-
nobody does that.
Yeah.
Nobody goes there, yeah.
And so that Twitter has started to kill the third-party apps so that they at least can force you to use a Twitter app.
Right, which is why they bought TweetDeck.
Right.
Right.
It's
They
very,
own it now.
I think it's a challenge. I'm not sure it's an automatic when Nielsen announced this week that they're going to have TV ratings through Twitter.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. It'll measure the number of people. This is okay. So Nielsen will give, a TV show, a number of people watching, what share of the total audience, what share of the available audience. Now they'll also give you a rating that says how many people tweeted about your program.
Tweet share.
And tweet share, and how many people viewed those messages.
Now, luckily,
can you hire people in India to tweet about your program and get a higher Nielsen
It's
rating?
already happened.
Oh, I was about to say, luckily the TV industry is so ethical, nobody's going to try to hijack this system. Can you
Of course.
If it were a dirty industry, then people would suddenly start setting up fake accounts, but there's no way.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
and nobody ever bribed any of those 1,200 people who are the Nielsen ratings.
oh, my
either.
God. Can you imagine?
Oh, God. Can you imagine if they figured out how to
100
monetize
people determine what the Nielsen rating is.
Well, so maybe this is better. Maybe this is a better solution than people meters.
Well, I think this is better in the sense of getting an actual picture of who's watching the shows.
But it's
talking about
it's more gameable.
Yeah. No, look,
but
these days,
I don't know
can't
if there's only 1,200 people and it's impossible to keep them keep secret who they are. I would think that's kind of gameable too.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, wait a minute. If people are watching television on the internet, if they're watching on a TiVo or a PVR, aren't there ways to actually know exactly how many people are watching?
TiVo knows
what
not
commercials
only.
they're seeing?
TiVo used to give us.
Nobody's doing that. The way the Nielsen rating
No,
works is
TiVo
we have
does do it.
people who are paid to watch television.
TiVo sells this information to TV shows. When we were doing the screensavers, I saw graphs that showed not only how many people watched the show, but when they tuned in, when they tuned out. When they rewound the TiVo, you'd see spikes at certain points in time. Yeah. Everybody rewound that one. What happened? Oh, it was Morgan. Okay, and so you really can see
that was me.
Yeah, it was Rob going. Ooh, let's see more of her. You can really see in a granular way, not merely how popular a show is, but how popular a segment is.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was useful information.
Well,
that
what's
was
fascinating to me is
Much
it feels
more
like the
granular
entire
than
world is
anything
still
else can give
catching
you.
up with where TiVo was 9 years ago. It's depressing.
Thanks to the networks, I think.
I mean, the
Blame
DVRs
networks.
are just so primitive compared to what I had on my TiVo the first.
And nobody
day I
uses
switched it
TiVos
on.
anymore because the cable company gives you a crap DVR,
Yeah.
and that's
And
the one.
do the cable companies keep the same? Do they have the same analytics that TiVo had?
They could. Whether they do that, I don't know.
I've got a Dish Network PVR. I assume they know what I'm watching.
It's got to be a huge revenue.
Yeah.
So,
Of course,
Social Guide is the company that.
You're not watching it.
Pardon me?
If you record it, you're not watching it.
Well, but they can know if I play it back.
That was a big issue in the early days of Nielsen. Is one of the things that really hurt the screensavers. They did not count DVR'd episodes.
Yeah.
And our audience was more sophisticated than the average bear. We had 3 or 4 times higher TiVo usership than
you would have
any
been
other
the
network.
only network that had any measurable TiVo usage, and,
And
you
now,
would have been completely crippled by
of
that.
course, the standard way of watching a TV show is to set it to record and then watch something already recorded while that's playing,
Right.
so that
So you can
go
skip
to that
the
and skip past the ads.
skip the
which is
commercials.
defeating the entire purpose of the commercial. But yeah. That's the big secret, isn't it? Nobody watches the commercials.
Hardly a secret.
Unless they're very interesting. Andy McDowell makes some interesting commercials.
Oh.
Last night we were watching.
Somebody has
TV.
a crush.
We actually backspaced to rewatch the commercial. I can't remember what a commercial it was, but we actually went back
Really?
and watched it. Yeah, because it intrigued us. There
Then
was
it's a
something
good
about
commercial.
it.
Done
that
that a
intrigued
few
us.
times, yeah.
So you're
What's the
fast
one?
forwarding through them, and then you go, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, this
that's
one
good.
actually, I have a device that automatically skips over. Don't tell my friends at CBS, but
Well,
my
and of course,
Hopper
on
automatically
demand and purchasing stuff is killing ads, because if you get used to watching Breaking Bad, as I have, without any commercials, and then you want to watch it, and it's loaded with, you go, oh, how can anybody watch it this way?
Well, then you also have to wait a week between each episode.
Breaking Bad's season finale, by the way, had 1.24 million tweets.
Wow.
Peaking at 20,000 tweets per minute. The hashtag Goodbye Breaking Bad 500,000 times was used. And that's all from Social Guide, the new Nielsen ratings.
Okay,
and
that's
so,
interesting. That is genuinely interesting stuff. But those statistics were gathered before the world knew that Nielsen was going to count them, report them, and excite advertisers with them. So I think the mere fact, what is it, the Huntington effect? The mere fact that people know Nielsen is watching, is going to queer those statistics very, very quickly.
The Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
Exactly.
And in fact, we've seen that because in movie stars actually over the last few years have been able to increase the amount of money they ask for in a movie based on the number of Twitter followers,
which of course is purchasable.
Wow.
Immediately created a market for phony Twitter followers.
Yeah.
So the Twitter follower number is now useless.
Yeah, it's meaningless.
Because I would say at least half of the accounts on Twitter are phony accounts.
Oh, I know a lot of my 1,100 followers. So I probably
there is a page.
Hyperinflated.
There is a page you can go to.
1,100 followers. It's really more like 900.
There is a page. I don't remember what it is where you can say you can. It's a statuspeople.com does a check on how many of your followers are fake.
You're kidding.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Based on whether they have a profile picture, whether they've tweeted, things like this. Let me just authorize that app and see how many of my followers
Go in there right now.
are.
Now, can you check anybody or you can only check yourself?
You can. I think you can check anybody.
Yeah,
Let's
because
see.
otherwise they trigger no pages.
It says no data returned for Leo Laporte. So apparently I don't exist on. But
You
the
guys
last
hear
time
me?
I did it was 30% of my followers were not real.
That's actually not so bad.
Why
because
would
there's a lot of
somebody not real want to be one of your followers?
I have many phony followers.
Yes. How?
Well, in the hope that you'll follow them. No. The other issue is
this
people
is
who
one of
follow
life's
people-
unanswerable questions.
Yeah. The other issue is people who follow people so they'll follow you back.
That's the theory, I think. The other thing is, and this has been happening a lot. I don't know if it's happened to you guys, but I'm getting a lot of direct messages from real people that are spam, that are fake. Somebody's either compromised their account somehow, but all of a sudden I'm getting DMs from real people that are promoting Viagra.
Don't you have to follow someone to get a DM from them?
Exactly.
Well, maybe it's New York City Comic Con coming up with a more cunning and diabolical way
isn't
to
that
subvert.
bizarre?
Oh my God.
That's so wrong.
It's like, I know I keep making North Korean jokes, but this is the kind of thing you'd expect to happen in Pyongyang. This is amazing.
It's interesting.
Well, it's also
Everything we
tone
talk
deaf.
about,
It's
You
insane.
know better.
Oh God.
I wonder if these things are all disclosed in Twitter's IPO filings. I mean, these are risks. These are security
They have to be,
risks
right?
Yeah.
that lower the credibility of the service. And if they don't solve these problems, it affects their long-term viability.
So Comic-Con, when you registered for it, you gave them your Twitter handle and authorized them to post on your behalf.
And the fine print on page 37 of their EULA, I assume.
It's not unusual to see that when you authorize an
on
app. You
your
just assume they're
behalf?
not going to do it, but they did.
They did with like fawning gesticulations to the awesomeness of Comic-Con.
Leo, what is this? They post on your behalf?
Yeah,
Yes.
it would say, I can't believe how awesome. What does it say?
Here it
Can't
is.
handle the
Here it
awesomeness,
is.
right?
Here's one. So much pop culture to digest. Can't handle the awesome NYCC. And that's on your Twitter feed.
In your name
As
and
if
your
you
voice,
wrote
as if you
that.
wrote that. Yeah.
So
Well,
an endorsement.
But
Did you get paid
they
for that,
never
Leo?
asked me for anything like that. I have a gold card for, and of course that's San Diego Comic Con.
Well, go back and look at your Twitter feed.
This is New
No,
York.
I have a.
They've apologized, by the way.
I have refrained from tweeting. I never have tweeted in my life, and I don't pay attention to them. I have a couple of very sharp readers who forward me tweets that actually make sense, and maybe I get one a day.
Well, the
But
funny thing is,
I don't pay any attention to Twitter. They're not going to make any money off of me.
this article, which is from Polygon, which is the gaming, the new gaming channel from SVox, the Verge
My
people.
boy is
Brian
involved in-
Crescenti, who writes for them, they tweeted on my account. They tweeted for IGN's Greg Miller. They're tweeting for journalists. This is really dumb. Bad enough to tweet for other people, but tweet for people who buy, as they say, ink by the barrel.
Yeah.
Big mistake.
It's shameless. It's shameless.
Well,
I mean, and insane. You're right. Like that's just
the new excuse is an intern did it, and that's what I would just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Just mention the intern.
Is there
That's
any way
always
to
the
find out if somebody is
Isn't that what
tweeting
they
in
blamed
my
the
name?
Iraq War on?
Well, do you have a Twitter account, Jerry?
No.
Then you're fine.
You're fine.
Well, then somebody could create a fake account for you, Jerry.
There may be. I would
looked at-
search twitter.com/Jerry Purnell. Well, in fact, now you better make a Twitter
Fake
account.
Now, what's funny is I searched and I found a Twitter name. So Twit has actually tweeted that Jerry Pornell is on this show to a fake Twitter account. If you do not have one,
How
Wait a
many
minute,
followers
Jerry.
does
Get
the
an
fan
authorized
It
Twitter
says
account.
this is not the human named Jerry Purnell. This is a bot account that auto tweets. Somebody must have made this for
Got
you,
it.
Jerry. that auto tweets your.
Oh, I'll bet you my daughter did that, probably as a protection. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good thing. You want to, and everybody should do this. You should have your name on Twitter. If you don't, you're really running a risk.
Yeah, well, my daughter's really pretty sharp, and I
The other
think
thing,
she
Jerry,
probably
I'm going to follow you.
You might be able to do is get a verified account. I did that where if you're a public figure, you can get a verified account, and that means that people know it's the real Jerry Pournelle versus the fake Jerry Pournelle.
But I have no desire to tell people when I'm going to have a ham sandwich.
Well, you don't have to use it for that.
No,
but
but
if you
Jerry,
go look at mine. There's a little. If you go look at my Twitter account, there's a little symbol right there that tells you that it's verified, that it really is me, which I think is an important thing if you're doing public stuff. But Jerry, I use it to promote my writing.
Yeah, that's what Jerry's using it for, even though he doesn't know it.
No, it's fine for that.
Great title suggestion in the chat room.
Well,
the intern did it.
I'll make a note of that, but you know,
I have.
It's a good one. We're going with that. Captain something.
That anybody who would be interested in what I have to say probably comes and looks at my website, and since thousands of
you're so old school, Jerry.
Money to keep it open. I mean, I have subscribers.
You're so old
I
school.
run my website on the
Wait a minute,
public radio.
You charge
model.
for content? I thought that was.
No, I
thought
don't
that was
charge
just-
it. It's a public radio.
He asks.
I
He
see.
asks for contributions, which I think is a smart
No,
idea.
I don't ask for contributions. I ask for subscriptions. I do exactly like KUSC does.
Right.
And in fact, I do it exactly when KUSC does it. About 3 times a year, I say, this is a pledge week, and if you
that's a
don't
good idea.
subscribe, you ought to.
Are you
And they
getting
do.
a federal subsidy?
And I
NPR
have
style.
a renewal rate around 80%. And I have been doing this for 10 years, and it works pretty darn good. It's a fair income, and I won't keep it up if I don't get subscriptions. But I would think that anybody who really wants to know what I've got to say will come there and find it out.
Jerry is the National Public Radio says about a 4% subscription rate. Do you know of the people who read your column how many pay?
Oh, I don't know how many actual. Well, I know how many website hits we get. And
Yeah,
so
just
forth.
divide.
Okay, it's in, but my renewal rate is around 80%.
Do you get a tote bag with purchase?
No, you get a darn thing for the purchase.
A Ken Burns series.
The complete Ken Burns jazz.
Yeah.
Because I considered that as a model, and we got about 2%, I think it was, and I just decided that's not enough to grow to the degree that we wanted to. I could have, made $50,000 a year and done a podcast every week, but that wasn't going to.
Well, I don't need the obligation to go too high.
Right.
After all, I'm 80 years old. I don't want to collect people and drop dead and not be able to finish the site.
You know what, Jerry? I have the same concerns. That's why we ask for, no money. And when you subscribe, we only subscribe for a week.
Well, what you have advertising. I don't do ads.
Right. No, I wish I didn't. I mean, nothing wrong with ads and nothing wrong with our advertisers, but
nothing wrong with ads, particularly if you won't advertise anything you wouldn't use.
Well, and that's our policy.
I've known you well enough to know you wouldn't do it. But I just never did because with Byte it was contractual. I couldn't take money from somebody else to be.
Well, I use Google Ads, where on the theory that I don't have any control over the ad. So, in fact, I could say something negative about a company, and they're just as likely to have an ad show up on my website as if I
I've
say
said
something
stuff
positive.
negative about advertisers, but that's not gone
I've got
well.
a couple of.
Well, in your case, that could be a.
That's life.
Google ads are.
I'm going to be honest, but the truth is, ultimately, I mean, if I had my choice, if I had my druthers, I would far prefer to the direct drive model that you've got, Jerry, which is people who listen pay. But I just found that most people wouldn't. People are used to free media, so we do ad-supported free media.
Yeah. Well, you make a lot more money at it than I do.
Yeah.
You had a tip jar, right? Is that what you're talking
We
about?
still have a tip
essentially?
jar,
Okay, so
yeah.
this was something in addition to that, or separate
Well,
from
the
that.
first 2 years of Twit, we tried to do it just by subscription.
Got it.
And it would have made enough money for me to make a small, not really quite a living, but almost a living. I'd be living in one of those earthquake shacks.
Earthquake shack.
Yeah.
Or a spider hole.
But we would never have done we've never built $1 million studio and done the growth that we've done. And I really wanted to try anyway. Might have been a mistake, but to try creating a network.
Amazing what you've done, Leo. You are the envy of the broadcasting industry.
Yeah,
I know people in the networks who look up to you, and they were shocked to see how successful you'd become.
I'm
it's
shocked.
Really an amazing model.
That
it is.
Laporte, I
It's
never thought he'd make it.
Well, you did
I'm
it on your own.
shocked.
It's pretty impressive.
Oh, I always thought you would. I thought you did it very well.
You're a very nice guy.
The
Thank you,
difference
Jerry.
is you're willing to undertake the obligation to keep doing that at the pace you do it, whereas I do what I feel like doing, and if you want it to keep up, you pay me to do it, and if you don't want it to keep up, you don't. And
Well, Joey, you don't have a payroll to keep up with either. I mean, when you
I
start
don't have a
hiring people-
payroll. I don't have big investments. I use the money to buy new equipment every now and then, and I get enough to do it. That's what I'm gonna upgrade to the new Apple stuff. It will be essentially from the subscriptions
That's
I get
nice.
to the site.
That's nice. I think that's a good model. I mean, everybody
and every
who knows.
now and then I have readers who are concerned enough that they actually send me equipment.
Yeah.
I don't ask for it anymore.
Anybody
They just,
of my generation or who grew up with Jerry Pournelle, anybody knows Jerry, who read his books, who've read his column, wants to support you. I mean, this is my hope that when I get to 80 and I can't do this anymore, I'll have people sending me computers and whatever it is in the future.
publish some ebooks because it helps to have a backlist.
I think so. Hey, we are going to take a break. I'm going to make a little money, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. We got a great panel, I got to say. Jerry Pournelle.
Let me say something for the record right now. Any of you people who are contemplating being writers, be dang careful about your electronic rights. I think the ebook rights are now worth more than the print rights.
Absolutely.
Which means that if somebody wants to offer you the kind of advance that is normal in print, but they want half your electronic rights forever as a consequence of it, I'd think very hard about taking that offer.
This is a big issue all around. For not just first rights, but electronic rights. I mean, in any creative field, this is a big issue.
In the first place, with electronic rights, first rights is eternal, isn't it? Once the guy puts it up there, there's nothing causing him to take it down. And if you've sold him you've sold him a non-exclusive right forever, then he keeps it up there forever.
Right.
And you never get another nickel.
That's actually a very good point, isn't it?
I have been trying to get this across to my fellow writers and science fiction writers of America that an electronic book contract that doesn't provide for further royalties after the initial publication of an anthology on thing, the fact that it's non-exclusive isn't going to mean anything.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
He's got it forever. He's basically done you as a work for hire, even though you didn't know that. So make it enough. You better ask for enough that it is worth it.
When I was writing my syndicated column back in the 80s and 90s, the LA Times Syndicate had no idea what electronic rights were worth. So they just kind of waived them. They said, okay, you could have them.
They can't. That
within
internet's not going
studios-
anywhere. It can't be worth anything.
Unlike the music industry.
Online
Yeah,
than I
they
made
knew,
out of
didn't
print.
they?
Oh, their contracts literally say across the universe in technologies, in perpetuity.
Yeah.
For we used to say that too. For every medium known now or
Not
ever,
yet known.
or not yet known, ever to be created in the future, for all time.
A friend of mine was in a fun, actually rather successful 90s kind of power punk band called Too Much Joy. And he wrote a song called In Perpetuity, where he literally, the lyrics were just lifted from his contract with Warner Brothers. And it's like in perpetuity across the universe, and it really, people really liked
It's kind of
the
hard to
song.
believe they actually put that in a contract.
The song was called In Perpetuity.
In perpetuity.
Yeah.
What was it
My
like
marriage
negotiating
vows
deals
aren't
with
that,
as Rhapsody negotiating deals with the music?
Well, it was tough because we were first. We were the first company to get full catalog licenses from all of the major labels. In fact, we were about a year and a half before iTunes. And so there wasn't any precedent. There wasn't any template. And we were also asking for something really exotic, which was an unlimited streaming service.
Right.
Which is commonplace today, but back then.
Could you say it's like radio, but it's on the internet? Would
It's
that
more like it's like a jukebox, because like radio implies it's not interactive. A jukebox implies interactivity.
So there's existing royalty rates for jukeboxes.
Yeah, and so we started gearing off of that. But the funny thing was, despite the fact that these 5 major labels, there were 5 back in those days, now there's 3 and falling, but the 5 major labels, although they were all allegedly bitter competitors, they all proposed the same rather exotic structure.
Hey, Jerry, what are you offering that kid Rob over there?
Oh, no. Not only that, we got contracts from some of them that had identical typos in them.
Yeah.
It was really...
Oh, boy.
Publishers have always been the class enemy for creator.
Right.
For writers.
You need them, though.
And
or you
composers.
used to need them.
You have to have. Well, you
I
may
don't know if you
still,
do
but
anymore, do you?
Now,
Not as much.
that's another program, and I'd be glad to come on and have that as a program theme, but it's not something you're going to settle in 2 minutes before you close.
Okay, well, I'm not closing yet, so hang on. Our show today brought to you by Squarespace. Now, if you are a creative, of course, the first step is getting on the web, and that's what Squarespace does. It's an all-in-one platform. It's hosting, plus, of course, the best content management system that lets you have a great professional website, an online portfolio, and yes, they do e-commerce now. So you could sell your books, your paintings, your art, your music. You could sell digital or physical. They'll handle all of it for you at a very reasonable price. More than 20 templates to start with, but then you customize so that every Squarespace site looks unique. The sites are all what we call mobile responsive. That means they work no matter what size screen, everything from an iPhone to a 27-inch cinema display. It's going to look great on. They have complete plugins for all the social medias. It all works great. All works very simply. Comments, everything. Great customer support, too. They've won a Stevie Award, just won a Gold Stevie Award for outstanding service. And the price starts at $8 a month, including a free domain name when you sign up for a year. If you want to do commerce, $24 a month with a yearly plan. That includes unlimited pages, unlimited galleries, unlimited blogs. You'll never get a bandwidth bill. Bandwidth is unlimited. Unlimited storage, unlimited contributors. There's no transaction fee for your purchases. Unlimited digital or physical goods. They'll help you calculate shipping and taxes. It's all built in for $24 a month. That is a great price for e-commerce. So this is what I mean. If you want to publish yourself, if you want to go directly to your customers, Squarespace makes it very, very easy to do. Here's our come on to you, if you will. Visit squarespace.com. You'll see a Get Started button. You don't need a credit card. You don't need to give them any information except your email address. That's in case you forget your password. And you've got the run of the place for 2 weeks. You can do anything you want to do, see how the templates work, import your existing site over, and really get a sense of what it can do for you. If at the end of that 2 weeks you say, yeah, this is the platform for me, you're going to get 10% off when you use our offer code, TWIT10. You only need that during purchase, TWIT10. We love Squarespace. We've had a great relationship with them for years. That's who runs our blog. You cannot bring a Squarespace site down. Squarespace.com. Try it free for 2 weeks if you decide to buy TWIT10 for 10% off on your new account. And I think, to me, that's why, if you're a creator, this is a golden age. I mean...
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, you can choose whatever model you want, and
that's the point.
For me,
you have a choice. Don't
me
you?
as a first-time novelist, I mean, third book, but first-time novelist, having a big publisher like Random House line up behind the book was essential to get my name out there. But as one gets more and more established, or if somebody has just got like unbelievable social media energy, it's entirely possible to go direct and to sell, particularly with electronic books, and keep a very big piece of the revenue. You know, but for nobody like me, definitely a publisher is important.
Here's a kind of a blow to...
That's where the publisher starts at being important, and it's...
Marketing.
Publishers have not yet figured out that is really the only essential thing they do.
Right.
Some of them may be getting smart enough to figure that out.
Well, now that you don't have to get shelf space in a bookstore, or pay for an author tour, the role is different. And maybe instead of publishing, we have agencies that's their job.
I think it'll move. I think agents, I think literary agents that are very modern and have relatively large operations will start branching into that. The trick they're going to have is that they could enrage the publishers, of course, who are very, very important partners of theirs.
Always the problem, isn't it?
Always the problem. But I think you're going to see the really smart, forward agents starting to do that kind of thing.
Interesting. Aereo.
They already do.
Let's talk about Aereo. Aereo is, of course, Barry Diller's play. I always thought it was just an interim thing, until this all is all over the internet. In the meanwhile, while there's still broadcast television,
it's a clever workaround.
It's very clever.
It seems like a joke.
They created dime-size antennas. They put them in a massive array in major cities, and then you rent the antenna, which gives you access to to broadcast over-the-air television in that area. New York had it first. Aereo and of course the networks are livid.
Of course.
They would love to kill this.
Retransmission fees are a very big part of their revenue.
And they get that from cable companies.
Precisely.
But this disintermediates that entirely.
This cuts it right out.
In fact, who was it? Two of the networks, I think it was CBS and Fox, somebody said, we're just going to go off the air in those cities because we...
Yeah.
But big victory in Boston. A federal judge they petitioned U.S. District Judge Nathaniel Gorton. Channel 5 petition said injunction. This is from Hearst, is the broadcaster in this case. Stop Aereo. And the judge said Aereo does not violate copyright. It's just like a remote DVR service that lets you watch and record individual copies for private use. That's not illegal.
You remember, was it the Diva, which was the service where they had a rack of DVD players, I think somewhere in Sunnyvale, and you would essentially rent a movie, but what you were really doing is renting the DVD. It's a similar concept, and they got shut down by the courts. But
it might have been because that was on demand. It might, because like when you get on demand, you get into a whole new realm of law, at least in music, and that might have been the reason. But this seemed like almost like a joke when it first came out. Like, we're gonna have bazillions of antennas. And
they
they're
have not lost
legally.
They have not lost yet in court. Broadcasters say we're going to the Supreme Court.
They've been killing it legally, but there's this interesting dimension. Have you heard of Tune2.fm, I think is what it's called?
Tune2.fm.
I think that's what it is. I hope I don't have it wrong. It's a guy named David Alki, A-L-K-I, who's an eccentric billionaire. I think he's from a wealthy family, Coca-Cola family or Greek shipping.
Is he broadcasting out of a mountaintop lair?
I don't know. But so here's the thing. So he created this thing, and I think it was called Tune. I might have it wrong, or Tune...
No, because you bought a company in 2001 called Tune2.com.
That's why it's stuck in my head. Try searching on David Alki, A-L-K-I.
There it is. Is that it?
It was Tune In Radio, but
Tune In, that's it. I think that's the thing.
That's a radio thing.
Well, I know TuneIn Radio Pro. I use that all the time. It's awesome.
This is
David Alki is the heir to the Coca-Cola Hellenic Shipping and Bottling Company.
Try his Wikipedia page.
Let's see if I can find what he's up to
Mike
these
Masnick
days.
from TechDirt was telling me that apparently...
Oh, Film On. You're talking about Film On.
Film On, Tune
Oh, those sons of bitches. I hate them. They're rebroadcasting us.
There you go. Film On.
I hate them.
I knew it was a long word followed by
losers. By the way, they've lost every court case.
So what Mike Masnick from TechDirt told me is apparently the broadcasters, because they're getting shellacked by Aereo, has decided that they're going to take on Film On instead because it's a very, very similar model. And apparently their legal team is not as slick.
Yeah.
So that seems to be, and nobody knows the rights stuff.
They're
the legal
rebroadcasting over the internet basically everything.
Everything, yeah.
Including Twit.
Yes.
Whatever they can get.
Yeah.
I don't know, Lisa, are they stripping out our ads? I don't know what they're doing. I remember that they were putting ads in. They're violating our license agreement for sure. But there's nothing. What am I going to sue them? There's nothing I can do about it.
I think that the broadcasters
I'll let CBS handle this.
Well, what I understand from Mike is that the broadcasters believe that Film On is a similar enough service to Aereo that if they get precedent with Film On that doesn't have, the platinum minted legal team that Aereo has, they're going to have a better shot at winning, something like that.
So here's Channel 9 in San Francisco broadcasting. I'm connecting to a remote antenna, he says.
So he says.
And there it is. And I can watch this on the internet even if I'm not in San Francisco. And this is, by the way, this Goodyear ad, that's a Film On.
That's a Film On ad. So Goodyear is supporting.
Well, not just Goodyear. A lot of companies are supporting this.
Are we on live with them?
There they are. I don't know. Are we live?
On Film On?
No, they're just doing the audio. I think that's just the audio version. Click the HD. See what you get up on the right there. Do you get video?
Now, one difference is that Aereo, I believe, is not inserting their own ads, right, into other people's programs.
Right. They get their money via a subscription fee.
So the networks are so on one level, the networks are getting more viewers, which is good for their advertisers.
Right.
But they're getting less of the. They're
not getting the retransmission fees. Yeah.
That's what's difficult to justify because from I think a lot of people's point of view, and possibly even these judges, they're saying, well, wait a minute, you're free in that city anyway.
Right.
You're monetizing with advertising.
You're not losing a single viewer.
You're not losing anybody.
Damaged? Yes. How are you damaged?
How are you harmed?
Well, you're damaged if people are stopping to pay transmission fees, which of course people will if they can find more and more excuses to get rid of their cable company.
And that's the point, which
that's
is
the fear.
That's the point, which is most people don't watch over the air. Most people watch on cable, so they're in effect double dipping. They're showing you the ads and they're getting the retransmission fees from the cable company, and they've decided they kind of like that.
Yeah, that's their business model.
That's a good model for them.
Right. Back before they did the retransmission fees, they might have welcomed Ariel. Well, increase their audience.
I doubt it, but so the model on Film On. Those sons of bitches, is free on standard definition with ads, or I can pay for it in high definition and not have any ads. And by the way, notice this is Channel 9, a broadcast and public broadcasting, not for profit, and they've got a Film On bug even over it.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this is anyway. So that Alki guy, no friend of mine.
Now, wouldn't it be funny if you recorded this and then put it up on YouTube and then Film On sued you for copyright infringement? Because
they probably will.
They probably would.
They're probably going to pull it off YouTube. Oh, what a world! What a world! There's Ellen with a big Film On bug. I can understand why broadcasters would be unhappy about this. This is fairly outrageous.
Yeah.
Tony Fadell, the guy who created the iPod, then went on to create that great little thermostat, the Nest.
Yep.
Is that still hot?
I think it's
or was
still
it
pretty
a quick buzz?
No, I think it's still pretty hot, but now he got the smoke detector.
Now he's got $129 for the Nest Protect. What is this, an internet connected? It's going to tell you your house is burning down over the internet?
No, it's going to tweet it.
The fire department?
And then if you're following your own Twitter feed, you'll find out that your house, the roof is on fire.
Tony call the fire department?
Tony says safety shouldn't be annoying. Well, maybe it should. If it's a fire alarm.
Ask very gently, do you mind leaving the burning plane?
So it's exactly, it says in a calm female voice, heads up, there's smoke in the kitchen. Which I get a lot, by the way. What?
Ladybug, ladybug, fly away home. Your house is on fire.
Maybe it's singing a song. By the way, you shut it up. You shut up, and this is a little too easy by waving at it. It's okay.
It's cool.
It's cool.
It's cool, man.
I think the issue is there's a lot of fake. There's a lot of false alarms.
Right.
Like
it gets rid of the false positives.
In the kitchen.
Right.
That's the issue.
It is, of course, ridiculously expensive at $129, considering you can get a First Alert for $20.
I found a smoke detector on Amazon for $7.98.
They're cheap,
but you don't want to necessarily skimp on safety. I get that.
And by the way, the folks at First Alert are also doing a similar smoke detector that talks to you. So, okay.
Can it understand the meaning of a wave?
Yeah.
Wave it off. That's the.
Well,
maybe Siri. Maybe
this is
Apple
not the fire you're looking for.
But Larry's right. It's all about the false positives, and that's what drives people crazy about smoke alarms.
Right.
Is you've charred some bacon in the kitchen and the thing's screeching, and I think that's the problem they're solving. And if people rip out the cables, they rip out the batteries, and they don't have a smoke alarm anymore, so it could solve for that.
Maybe Apple should do one, and they could use Siri. You could talk to your smoke detector. She could say, "Did you say you're having dinner?" Or no, she get it wrong. That's okay. Your house will burn down.
I have the Nest. I'm not crazy about it. It turns on the heat at inopportune moments.
Really?
Yeah. I don't. It's like you're supposed to learn that, but I don't know what it's learning. So.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that.
It's kind of like that. Where
I've got to make your house warmer.
Exactly. You've ceded. Your autonomy to some device. But I love it that what you've got is a class now of entrepreneurs who are so cocky. We've reinvented music. Well, let's find another category and reinvent that.
Smoke alarms.
Smoke alarm. They're coming up with interesting stuff.
I can see the PowerPoint. Smoke alarms are a $6 billion industry.
Yeah. You can see
hockey stick charts.
Yeah, I can totally see the PowerPoint. That's really what determines these products, whether you can pitch them to a venture capital, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I try to figure out what's the problem it's solving other than the shrilling alarm.
I can set my smoke detector from an iPad.
And how do you set your smoke detector?
I don't know. Look, see, she's cooking. The smoke detector goes off.
Oh, I see. That's good.
He waves at it.
That. I wave a broom at mine, and it usually turns itself off.
This is the wave I do.
Well, if you start waving your hands in panic because the place is on fire and it shuts off and you roll over and go back to sleep.
I'm waiting for Chad to show me so I can.
I realize.
All right. You know what I didn't do? I've been gone for a while. Yeah, that. Let's see if you missed anything on Twit this week. Is it going to be OMG TV again? Because
I hope not.
I am not enamored of that notion. Let's see what you missed this week on Twit.
Previously on Twit. Matt Break Weekly.
Are you training it to recognize your tongue now? I don't think it's going to work.
It won't get more whorls.
It doesn't work because there's no whorls on the tongue.
There's no whorls on the tongue?
Frame rate.
Nielsen is going to measure television shows on Twitter.
Are they going to keep track of it on Snapchat? Are they going to be following it on Instagram? I mean,
I applaud you on catching up with 2008.
Windows Weekly.
Did you see that video of the new Fox News set?
It's like the Oompa Loompas working a giant iPad.
The sad part is there are great uses for perceptive pixel displays in newsrooms.
Plus,
in this
when
zone,
nothing is going on, they can use it to play cut the rope.
iPad today.
This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Age of the Fractity.
Twit. For help with the technology addiction problem, call 1-800-TWIT.
And nothing will happen. Great Jim Cutler, who does our, and by the way, pro bono, thank you, Jim, does our little outs on there. He's always got something funny. Tom Merritt, what is coming up on the week ahead?
Hey, thanks, Leo. It's good to have you back so I can say thanks, Leo, instead of trying to guess who's there every week. Here's a few of the things we'll be keeping an eye on in the week ahead on Tech News Today. Monday is a day off for some in the United States, Columbus Day. But Tuesday, October 15th, Ad Age Digital in San Francisco kicks off. Wednesday, October 16th, new HP laptops and tablets are out, as long as the kickoff of GigaOM Mobilize. Thursday, October 17th, the Online News Association Conference happens in Atlanta. It's IMDb's birthday. Microsoft Windows 8.1 launches. Ubuntu's smartphone OS also supposed to be ready for launch, as well as Ubuntu 13.10. Friday, October 18th, it's Nintendo's NES's birthday. Internet Explorer 11 arrives along with Windows 8.1. That's a look at the week ahead. Back to you, Leo.
Leo, do you know that Monday is Thanksgiving in Canada?
Yes, I do know
I found that out because I called tech support for this product, and it was a Canadian company, and they told me they're closed on Thanksgiving
That's right.
Monday.
Thanksgiving.
Who knew?
Yeah, I knew because I used to go to Canada every month to
okay.
eat turkey.
They have a monthly Thanksgiving up
They
there?
have a monthly. They are so grateful up there.
There's so much to thank
every month.
They should be. It's
Yeah,
that health
Thank
care
you
they love.
again.
Thank you for making,
It's that socialized medicine that Jerry probably hates.
right. No, they're grateful because when you go to Turkey, you don't have to say, I'm from Canada. You are. Hey, thank you, everybody. What a fun show. This was probably the longest Twit in history, but it's because we had the greatest panel ever. Jerry Pournelle, always a pleasure. JerryPournelle.com, folks. Bye. Jerry ran out of words. I didn't think that was possible. Thank you, Jerry. Thanks to Larry Mag at CBS Radio, Larry'sWorld.com. Congratulations on 30 years in the biz. That's great.
Thank you, Leo.
Yeah, good anniversary. Rob Reed's book, Year Zero, is available now and for the next few days at Amazon.com. Go get it at 99 cents on a Kindle. That's a great deal.
Yeah, and I think it's U.S. only, just to point that out. Yeah.
You've just made a lot of Canadians less
I
thankful.
think of Thanksgiving tomorrow, so...
Anyway,
health care.
Anything else you want to plug, Rob? As long as you're here, you got the book. What are you doing? What is Morgan doing? More to the point,
Morgan's working on a secret project. It's cool. I'm excited about it.
Good for her.
Very proud of it, but it's secret. So I
Okay.
can't really talk about what she's up to.
Come back when actually Morgan should come
She
back.
can come back and she can tell you about it.
I haven't
than
seen
can.
Morgan since I
Hey,
talked
Leo.
to her into her last secret project, which was a big mistake.
Leo, I know I'm no longer have the floor, but can I plug something?
Oh yeah.
Parent's Guide to Cyberbullying at connectsafely.org. It's all about cyberbullying. It's a free 8-page guide. And if you're concerned about that, go to connectsafely.org and read about it.
Everybody should. Every parent should know about it.
Not an epidemic, but for the families that are affected by it, it's a problem.
It's nasty, and you should just know about it and know what the issues are and be prepared to deal
Thanks
with
for
it.
letting me
Yeah.
say that.
Connectsafely.org. No, that's a good plug. Rob Reed, always a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Delightful.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Larry. Thank you. We do this show for being here every Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 2200 UTC on twit.tv. Love it if you watch live because we get the chat room, gives us all our jokes. But if you can't, we've got on-demand audio and video available at twit.tv. We also invite you to join us in the studio. As always, a great studio audience. Thank you for being here. You can email us tickets at twit.tv. It's not necessary, but it helps us because then we'll put a chair out for you and you don't have to sit on the floor. Tickets at twit.tv. TV. Thanks for being here. Thanks for welcoming back. And also thanks to Padre, to Sarah, and was it Tom Merritt for doing Twit while I was gone. I really appreciate it, all three of you. Thanks to Chad Johnson, our producer. We'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can.
Doing the Twit. All right. Doing the Twit, baby. Doing the Twit. All right. Doing the Twit, baby.
So Hawaii used a WordPress blog for its healthcare, the sign up.
That's interesting. Did it work?
Oh my God. And apparently there were like major security flaws.
Is it running on an Amiga?
Would admin the password?
The federal one is also running on WordPress.
Yeah, okay.
Add WP-admin to the thing.
Yeah, let's see if we can hack it. Okay. This is probably a federal crime.
Nobody's watching.
Yeah, look.
Try. Nobody's looking.
No, they're not.
I love it.
Try admin,
See if it's
admin.
admin and the password is password.
Yeah, try admin.
Yeah, just say password.
Oh, and remember me, because if I get in, I want to stay there.
We'll never remember this crazy password we just put in.
Okay. No. Monkey 123, I think, is the federal password.
Maybe Washington.
No.
Oh, Lincoln.
But you see how easy it is to try to brute force this. I mean, it doesn't.
Praise Obama.
I cannot believe this. Why? I mean, I could. Oh, wait a minute. Let me see. I lost my password. Let's see. Here, let me email it to me at leoville.com. Oh, there's no users with that name. How about president at White House?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
.gov. Nope. POTUS? Oh. Is it POTUS, not president?
POTUS is a good guess.
Oh, maybe that's the password. POTUS. If I get in, I'm going to jail. You understand that?
No, I don't think you're going to finish this program.
I bet the password might be like Boehner
They are
sucks or something
already
like that.
activated in Petaluma, and they're headed your
They know,
way.
they know where. But you should not be able to go to getcoveredamerica.org/WP login, and it shouldn't give you that. That's ridiculous.
This is white hat stuff here. We're trying to probe the weaknesses so that they can fix them.
Me and Adrian Lamo.